Welcome to Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special with your host, Mark Simon. Tonight's program is also streaming live on the internet at www.pentv.tv. Tonight's Live Election Night Special is brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. And now your host, Mark Simon.
Welcome to Election Night 2012 here on Peninsula TV. Thanks for being with us. We've got a full night, 4 full hours of San Mateo County news, election results, interviews. This is the place to be if San Mateo County elections is what matters to you. We're happy to welcome first and foremost to start the show with Jim Meter, the CEO of today's Sotheby's International Realty, one of the underwriters of our show. It's been great. It's great to have you help us put this show together. Jim, tell us why it was important to you to do this.
Voting is one of our country's greatest democratic rights. In one night, we will choose who leads our country for the next 4 years. I think it's also notable to note that the Veterans Day follows Election Day, and without the actions of our veterans and our standing military, there may be those that might want to take that right away from us. But for tonight, now let's all enjoy the American process.
Excellent. You know, we laugh and we shout and we fight, but it's nice to have the privilege to vote.
Yes.
Jim, thanks so much for being here. I'm going to introduce the rest of our team here. We got a whole bunch of people out there working to make this show work for you. We're going to start with Bobby Decker, who's sort of commanding our election results headquarters. Bobby, what do you got going on tonight?
Well, Mark, it should be a very, very interesting night. There are a lot of close races. There are trends developing. You know, this is going to be one of those kind of elections they'll be talking about for years and years. So I'm here with you till midnight. We'll have a great ride.
Thanks, Bobby. Also, Katie Rolletto is here. She's our social media whiz. Tell me what's going on, Katie.
Well, I'm going to be reading all of those Facebook posts, those tweets, and maybe even showing a few of those really cool hipster filter Instagram photos. We're online on PenTV 26 on Twitter, and find us on Facebook at PenTV. If you have something that you want us to read on the air, hashtag PenTV Election Night.
We want to hear from you. Katie's your conduit to getting your own thoughts on the air. Thanks, Katie. Also, Danny Gasparini is on the loose somewhere in San Mateo County with a camera. She'll be doing interviews from the scenes of campaign election parties, election headquarters in Belmont where the votes are being counted, and God knows what else Danny will bring our way. But right now, we are delighted, thrilled to invite back our old friend Bob Marks. We wouldn't have started this show without you, Bob. Bob, of course, was the co-host with me for years on Penn TV's The Game, and he was the guy who invented the idea of us doing these election night shows.
It's great to be back with you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. Bob's going to be dropping in throughout the evening to give us his analysis, crunch the numbers, tell us what trends you see and what's going on. The polls just closed in California. What's the first thing you're hearing? What's the first sense you've got? Not necessarily about California, but we're all following the national election. What's going on, Bob?
Well, the first thing about California is they just projected Barack Obama the winner in California.
I am personally very
real
shocked
surprised.
by that.
But we've got a very interesting race going on nationally right now. In the states that were really focused on, what Chuck Todd called FLOVA, Florida, Ohio, and Virginia, we've got incredibly close races in all those states. With about 8 million people voting in Florida so far, the candidates are separated by about 30,000 votes. And in Ohio and Virginia, you've got a similar thing. Obama is leading in both Ohio and Florida, and Romney has a very slight lead, like 20,000 votes in Virginia. So those things need to play out. I think the most interesting thing about tonight is all of those public polls that were so controversial are playing out pretty much the way that everybody expected.
Of course, nobody likes that. Everybody would like the polls to be wrong. Why do you think this election is so close, Bob?
Well, you know, I mean, I think we've seen this polarization develop over so many years. And, you know, I'm of the belief that this race was pretty much locked into place several months ago. If you look back to May and then you come forward to today, the race is pretty much where it was. Obama picked up a lot of steam over the summer, and Romney made a lot of mistakes in the early fall. Then we had the first debate. Romney picked up some steam, but in the last couple of weeks, the race has really shifted ever so slightly back to Obama. I think it's the nature of our country, and I worry that with all of these close finishes, there are going to be people saying, you know, Obama is not a legitimate president, as they've been saying over the last 4 years.
Yeah, there are some people, I think, a lot of what that's about, I think, is that there's some societal changes taking place. An African-American president, a Latina on the Supreme Court, a female Speaker of the House. Some of those are social shifts that I think are not going to go away. But it's the nature of conservatism in particular to try and resist those changes because it doesn't harken back to an era that they prefer. We were talking before off the air about how much this race in many ways resembles the 2004 election, Bush-Kerry. And I want to run my own theory by you and get your thoughts about it, which is that when you have an incumbent, it's a two-step process. First, it's do I want the incumbent? But elections are not yes or no about the incumbent. They are compared to who. So the second thing the challenger has to do after convincing people they don't want the incumbent is to convince people that they're the right substitute for that incumbent. In 2004, Kerry didn't close that deal. And I have all the sense that the same thing's happening here, that Romney never quite closed the deal about, I'm not going to be, instead of that guy, I'm going to be better than that guy.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think the other...
Well, let's say that again.
Okay, yeah. This time, I think you're right. The other thing is tactically, you know, 2004, 2012 shows the power of the incumbency. Bush was able to spend 4 years and generate several million faith voters, new voters that tipped the election his direction. Obama organization is unparalleled in terms of anything we've seen in presidential politics. And he had 4 or 5 years, if you go back to the first election, to build that organization. And we're seeing it play out tonight, how strong his organization is.
What other races do you think you'll be following, starting at the national level and working your way down to here, San Mateo County?
Well, I'm interested in the Senate. Things are playing out the way that it's expected. It looks like that the Democrats will be about where they were, 52, 53 Senate seats. The House has already gone or staying with the Republicans. And, you know, obviously looking at California, I'm very interested in the Proposition 30. Proposition 32.
Okay, 30 is the governor's tax.
I'm sorry, yeah, the tax.
32 is the union. The purported campaign reform, but in fact it's really a shot at the union's abilities to raise money. 34,
the death penalty initiative. I think those are the ones that I'm most interested. Here locally, certainly we've got a very hotly contested race for county supervisor. And then we've got Measure A, which is the county's sales tax, along with Measure B, excuse me, which is moving to district elections, which would be a big shift for this county. And then we've got Measure C, which would take the controller and make it an appointed position.
That one will be interesting historically for history buffs like you and me, because this county has never voted to take enough office they can elect and turn it into an appointed office.
And the county has really held strong on having countywide elected officials and not having district elections. That's been a hallmark of this county. It's one of the few places that does that, and it'll be interesting to see if that's going to change.
Yeah, historically, the voters in this county don't like to change the structure of government, so it'll be interesting to see if that spills over to the district election issue. We have a divided electorate. What things do you think that they tend to agree on? For example, there's a real dissatisfaction, disenchantment with government. Does that translate into these tax measures? There's Prop 30, there's Prop 38 statewide, and there's a number of important tax measures on the local ballot. There's Measure A, which is the sales tax increase, but there's cities that have tax increases. The school boards have some bonds, and there's also a parcel tax. Do you think that there's an animosity toward government that plays out in this election, or do you think that these voters make some distinctions?
Well, you know, I think statewide, the economy, which is in pretty bad shape in a lot of places in California, not so as much here in San Mateo County. So I think that's going to impact, Proposition 30. I think that may have. Here in the county, it's the tough part for Measure A is that you have to get people to vote for the statewide measure and then come down and say, oh, here's another one. Do I really want to vote? You know, I voted for a $0.25 at the state level. Now I'm voting for a half-cent here. They just get tired of that. So the big question is how much that's going to come into play.
Let's talk a little bit about Prop 34, the death penalty initiative, because you and I can both recall less than a generation ago, 20 years ago, maybe less, that if you had put a ballot measure on the ballot to implement the death penalty, it would have gotten 60, 65% of the vote. This turnabout where it's quite possible that we will be repealing the death penalty is a social shift that's astonishing to me. What do you think's happened?
Yeah, well, you know, I think that you're right. A lot of the governor's races in the 80s and 90s were decided on the death penalty issue.
Wilson really made that sort of a mantle for himself.
Deukmejian, you know, that was a huge issue in that race. I think what's happened is clearly the demographics have changed in California significantly, but I also think we've just seen so much around the country with the scientific DNA and things like that, where we see a case here and there where somebody, you know, is on death row, but they find out that that person, in fact, didn't commit the crime because of DNA that they didn't have when the person was convicted. So I think people are getting less comfortable with the idea of the death penalty. I don't know whether, you know, it'll reach the point where tonight, you know, that they will essentially throw it out here in California.
What's interesting about that campaign is that they made an economic argument. They argued that it was cheaper to keep somebody in prison for life than to go through the entire appeal process, plus the way they're housed, which is that they're essentially in isolation the entire time they're in prison, that it was cheaper not to execute them, which is also a reversal. I think intuitively we all think, well, it'll be cheaper not to have them around anymore. Let's talk a little bit about Prop 32, because that's the one. What's interesting to me about that one is just the revelation of where the money came from to support Prop 32 and to another degree in opposition to Prop 30, which was organizations associated with the Koch brothers, but it passed through 2 or 3 other organizations in an attempt to hide the money. As a former political consultant, you and I have been friends for a long time. I know this is one of the things that disenchanted you about the process. But what's your take on all of that? How does that play out? How does that affect getting that word today on Election Day? Does that have any impact on these measures? And also, how does that play out in the next election in terms of people's view of some of these things?
You know, I think it's probably too late to have an impact on what the ultimate outcome is going to be. And I think Prop 32 will be defeated. And it really, you know, we've seen these anti-union measures across the nation. And in many places, they are passing and they're moving forward. California, the teachers union and SEIU and all of the unions in California are still very strong and still really control, to a great degree, California politics. And so they're stronger here. But, I think that the issue of money and this incredible amount of spending that we're seeing, and the Supreme Court decision and the impact that that's had on the presidential race and all the other races, I think that's something that really is making people uncomfortable.
So you think this may be sort of a watershed moment in campaign finance reform?
I think that, there's been a lot of talk behind the scenes that President Obama, if he's reelected, may make that an issue. May say that we really need to deal with this directly because he thinks he'll have the people behind him. Even if he's not able to make any changes politically, it's probably a good thing to do.
We haven't talked at all about Prop 37, which is the food labeling measure. That has all the earmarks to me of an idea that hasn't arrived yet. And there's also, there are 2 elements, and I'd like to ask you about that notion, but also this notion that some of these things are things the legislature really ought to just be doing, that's the right way to do it. But we end up with these ballot initiatives that really often prove out the law of unintended consequences. And these are incredibly complex proposals that I just don't think, I don't know if the initiative is the way to do these things.
Yeah, having been involved in actually writing some statewide initiatives.
So you're to blame.
Yeah, well, it is very complex. And you have an idea and you say, this is what we want to do. But you can end up with a lot of things in that initiative that when you wrote it, you didn't really understand what the impact was going to be, loopholes, things like that. It'll be very interesting to see how 37 plays. My guess is it'll probably be defeated, but it may be something that we see coming back a number of times.
I mean, I think about, and it's not a direct analogy, but I think about things like gay marriage, which passed, the ban on it passed, and passed not by a huge margin, but fairly comfortably. And I think if that same measure was on the ballot now, it probably wouldn't pass. So some of these are sort of evolutionary ideas that have to come before people before they're ready to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about some of the local measures. We talked about Measure A a little bit. Going into the campaign, going into Election Day, what's your sense of that campaign and whether or not they made a case for what they needed to do, that the county needed this money, and what do you think were the pitfalls in that campaign?
Well, I think, again, anytime you're going to pass a sales tax measure countywide, it's a pretty high threshold that you've got to overcome. The difference in this race is, unlike a lot of races in the past, there was a lot of money that was put up primarily by the hospital that would benefit Seton, that would benefit from the earthquake retrofit money. So that may have an impact. It's hard to read at this point how that's going to play out. I think the big problem is the state measure. Mm-hmm. And I was involved in the early 90s in a local measure, and the governor, Pete Wilson, put on a sales tax at the state level, and all of a sudden we just got killed in the race. And so I think that may become a problem tonight. Yeah.
We're going to get to Bobby Decker in a more thorough review of the results in a little while. It always takes a little time to compile them. But just taking a sneak peek here on my iPad, Measure A, it's early, and these are absentee ballots, but Measure A's got 63% of the vote.
Whoa.
Are you surprised by that?
I am surprised.
Of course, how many precincts reporting is that? That's strictly vote by mail.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge, that's a huge chunk of votes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think, let's assume those numbers hold steady, why do you think this county would be voting for something like this?
Well, I think that clearly there's a need. I think people recognize that the county government operation has been cut back dramatically over the last several years. And so I think there's a need. I think if those numbers hold up, then the campaign that was out there really was very effective. They did a lot of television, spent a lot more money than we've seen in races here in the county before. And so I've got to believe that that's really the major factor.
Bob, good to see you. We're going to have you back. God knows, you might be back sooner than we thought. But we're going to go to a break right now. Stay with us. We'll be right back. This is the place to be on election night. Welcome to Peninsula TV, Election 2012. We'll be right back. Stick around.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. Follow and interact with us on Twitter at PenTV26, at Facebook.com/PenTV26. And don't forget to visit our website at PenTV.tv. Hey, did you know that Peninsula TV is available to over 230,000 households in San Mateo County?
And then there's the internet. We stream all of our programming on our website, PenTV.tv.
Our website has everything you need to know about what's going on in San Mateo County.
From kids to healthcare, from sports to business, from politics to lifestyles.
Peninsula Television, your independent source for news, information, and entertainment since 1999. Tonight's Live Election Night Special is brought to you by
Today Sotheby's International Realty, bringing new technology to a 200-year-old tradition while serving the San Francisco Peninsula, Silicon Valley, and clientele worldwide.
San Mateo County Office of Elections.
Hey guys, Will Durst here for my good friends, acquaintances at Penn TV, the place for what's happening in San Mateo County, and lots more too. Visit Penn TV on your local cable TV provider, or live on the web at www.penntv.tv. Hey, they do good stuff.
Hi, I'm Lisa Roundtree, Vice President of Human Resources with San Mateo Credit Union. I've been a longtime supporter of Peninsula Television as an individual and as a part of my organization. I'd like to invite you to support Penn TV too. Penn TV has been an important and independent community resource in San Mateo County since 1999 and continues to bring informative and entertaining programming to our community. To make a contribution to Penn TV, please visit their website at www.penntv.tv and click on the Donate tab. PEN TV is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization, so all donations are tax deductible. Thanks very much and enjoy your favorite PEN TV shows.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. And now, back to Mark Simon.
Welcome back to Election Night 2012 here on Peninsula TV. As I'm sure you know, if you've been following the election, some of the networks, CNN, have declared Barack Obama the winner. We're happy to have on our set, on the phone tonight, Bill Whalen from the Hoover Institution, Republican strategist, and a regular guest on our show here. Bill, thanks for joining us tonight. Are you comfortable with the call that it's Obama, or do you think we should wait a little while longer?
No, Fox News has called it for Obama, and Fox News is going to call it. That's about as certain a sign as Republicans are conceding.
I imagine it was a real matter of joy to them. Tell us what you think happened, why you think the president was reelected tonight.
Well, I view it as a couple of factors. One is strategic, and the other one is sort of big picture politics. And the strategic, pardon, my dog is having a fit here. The strategic one was this. Barack Obama had a real luxury going into this election, if you want to call it that. He didn't have a primary challenger, Mark. And that freed him up to do what he wanted to do in the spring. And he did two things. One was he acted presidential, and then the second was he spent money advertising against Mitt Romney and really beating Romney to the punch in a state like Ohio, making bank capital an issue and really painting a very strong negative portrait of Romney that I don't think Romney ever overcame. But
Excuse
the second,
me, Bill, we haven't been able to put your name up, so I want to make sure people know the voice you hear is the wisdom and intelligence and insights of Bill Whalen, longtime Republican strategist and Hoover Institution fellow. Please continue.
Feel free to put up John Hamm's picture instead of mine if you want to. But the other thing is just it's big picture, and this is a problem for Republicans in national elections from here on out. You have to look at who votes on election days in America. And what Republicans needed to have a chance in this election was an electorate that was about 75% white. Because Republicans do not do well with African Americans, and they do poorly with the fastest growing segment of the American voting population, Hispanics. We won't know the final tallies on the electorate, but the estimate I've seen is that it'll be about 72% white. That sounds trivial, 75 versus 72.
I'm sorry, 72% Hispanic, you mean?
No, 72%, the electorate will be 72% white.
Okay.
Overall. So that sounds trivial, 75 versus 72, but in a state like Ohio, a state like Florida, where the difference is about 30,000 votes last time I saw it, it is a huge difference. So Republicans have to make a decision, I think, from here on out. They can either try to find more white Americans to vote for them, but there's a finite supply, or they're going to have to do better with Hispanics, plain and simple. And if you do better with Hispanics, you stand a better chance of winning a state like Ohio and Florida, and you can be more competitive in Nevada, where Romney never had a chance, and Colorado and New Mexico, where again he didn't have a chance. So that's what I see coming out of this.
Okay, let me ask you, Bob Marks and I were talking earlier. Bob's here, says hello. And we're talking to Bill Whalen of the Hoover Institution, a Republican strategist. We were talking earlier about how defeating an incumbent is a two-step process. First, you have to decide you don't want the incumbent, and then the challenger has to make a case that he's the person people want instead. And I've often wondered, frequently wondered, whether Romney really ever closed that deal, that he really didn't make the case that he's not just not Obama, but that he'd be better than Obama.
There will be a ton of hindsight and second guessing about the Romney campaign, and some of it will be that the Romney strategy all along was that this would be a referendum on Obama, and when in fact it's really a two-part election. Part of it's a referendum on the incumbent, but it's also a sales job by the challenger. And you're right, I don't know if Romney ever did a sufficient job. I think Romney was at all times challenged as a presidential candidate. We live in an age now where we expect sort of a People magazine quality out of our candidates. There has to be some sort of Horatio Alger story. You know, it's the Sports Illustrated Happy at Last column that they always write about Darryl Strawberry or someone like that. And we look for it now in presidential candidates. We want to know what great adversity he'll overcome. Romney's curse, if you will, is he's had sort of a very blessed life in terms of good fortune and good health and good looks. And so finding the flaw in him, kind of the human gene, has been hard all along. But again, it's just this national elections are becoming tougher and tougher for Republicans. It's just an uphill battle. One of the important players tonight is Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, under his watch, California became a very blue state. So that's 55 electoral votes Democrats can count on. Bill Clinton revitalized the Democratic Party and made it competitive in states like Ohio. And while Barack Obama is a formidable campaigner, has done remarkable things, he also has reaped a lot of what Bill Clinton sowed years ago.
Thanks, Bill. Bob has a couple of questions for you.
Bill, it's Bob Marks. It's good to see you, or good to hear from you. Question, what's the Republican Party going to do from here? Where do you see them regrouping in the short term and then over the long haul? How are they going to interpret this election?
Well, I think you're going to find the first thing you do is you throw the campaign under the bus. And I hate that cliche, throw under the bus, but let's use it anyway. There'll be second guessing of the Romney strategy. There'll be quiet criticism of Romney himself. Then I think you're going to have a full-fledged food fight within the Republican Party. There'll be three factions. One faction will be social conservatives. Rick Santorum will say that Romney was not sufficiently socially conservative on issues like abortion. He was not sufficiently fiery on issues like Libya, that he ran too cautious of a campaign. Second group to complain will be Tea Partiers, who will say that no, he's not enough of a tough guy on entitlements, for example, in government, and that'll be Jim DeMint and maybe Senator Cruz, just elected from Texas. And then the third faction will be the governors, the can-do guys, and that's Chris Christie, who has kind of become very prominent in the last few days, criticized from some people for being too chummy with Barack Obama. And he's been very vocal in the last 48 hours of the Romney campaign and getting pressured about this. But you'll see, Christie out there. So, just watch the beeline of people to Iowa and New Hampshire and just talking about the future of the Republican Party. But I think you'll see three factions. Now, by the way, I'll add, the Democrats have an issue, too, because now they have a lame duck president. And, whoever runs next to replace Barack Obama will not be Barack Obama. So the Democrats also have to do a little soul-searching here, but nothing along the scale what the Republicans are facing.
Let me ask you, did Hurricane Sandy, what kind of impact did that have? Hurricane Superstorm, whatever the heck they're calling it. What kind of impact did that have? It certainly afforded Obama the opportunity to look eminently presidential at a really critical time, I guess.
It's interesting. The exit polls tonight, Mark, have shown that voters really didn't factor that in their decision. But I think what Sandy did was it just kind of stopped the flow of the campaign, the narrative, and the perception maybe of Romney having momentum out there. So I suspect that worked to Obama's advantage. But, overall, I think this election, you can chalk it up to larger factors, one of which is the Obama campaign just had a terrific ground game just all across the country. I mean, just one thing which you had to notice with these votes was just what a struggle it was for Romney to win a state like North Carolina, where the perception was he'd win it by 3 or 4 points, and he just barely scraped by. They took forever to call it. Florida, perceived as a state where Romney probably won by a couple points. It's still in play right now in Ohio, where they got it right. So, while we could talk about Sandy, I just think the bigger story is just that Obama, to his credit, he and David Axelrod and company just ran a very smart campaign.
Bill Whalen of the Hoover Institution, Republican strategist and friend of the program. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for your insights. We appreciate it. We'll see you down the road a little bit.
Hey, take care, guys.
We're now being joined by Democratic Congresswoman. We're not ready with her yet. So, Bob, let's talk a little bit, especially about that Hispanic element of it.
Well, I think the demographics, we've heard a lot about it. The Republicans have known this was a problem for 20 years, and yet they're headed the other direction. And I think tonight illustrates, to a great degree, what a big hole that they've dug themselves, and I'm not sure how they're going to get out of it. The other thing that I wanted to mention about Mitt Romney is, I heard one Republican strategist say at one point that the worst thing in politics is not when voters decide they don't like you, it's when they decide you don't like them. Mm-hmm. And when Mitt Romney said, I know he didn't write the headline, but if you read his article, Let Detroit Go Bankrupt, he said, let foreclosures hit the bottom, we shouldn't get involved in that. He said we should turn FEMA over to the states or even the private sector. What he didn't think about is real people are involved in that. And a lot of those real people are in Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and that was Obama's firewall. And Mitt Romney was never able to penetrate that.
Ohio in particular, because of the auto industry.
Yeah.
In fact, they have lower unemployment than the rest of the country. We now have a chance to get some results here from San Mateo County. We're going to go to our friend Bobby Decker. Bobby, take it away.
Hello, Mark. Hi, Mark. I'm here. I'm still here. I'll be here till midnight. But we do have some results, and they're coming in from the write-ins, actually from the absentee votes. The Warren Slocum is at almost 58%, and his challenger, Shelley, is at the 42 mark. And that's based on what people are saying and have said. That kind of figures into the mathematics of it. We also have some other votes coming in. I understand that Measure A, just as Mark and they were talking or speaking of it, you'll have to excuse me, but it's not flipping up here as quickly as I had expected it. But Measure A is winning. You have Measure B right now that also shows a positive vote, and then Measure C. But again, Mark, these are all the write-in votes. These are all the early ballots that were cast, so these are not going to be probably the exact results we're going to have later on in the evening. But we'll do it. They're just a little bit slow today.
Thank you for that, Bobby. We're particularly interested in the race between Warren Slocum and Shelley Mazer and Measure A and Measure B. Of course, we do have a huge percentage of the people in this county who vote by mail. So this could be a good chunk of the vote. But right now we're going to go on the phone with Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, who's joining us from somewhere out there. Anna, thank you for being here. Congratulations on the win by the Democrats, retaking the White House.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Anna. How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. Tell us what you. We hear everybody calling the election for President Obama. He's been reelected. Even Fox News is saying so.
CNN has projected that President Obama has been reelected, and that's the breaking news right now. Yeah. When Ohio went into his column, that was a big win.
Tell us what you think.
Very big win. So I think that it is not only President Obama, but the reelected president right now. So I think for many, many, many people across the country, this is an exciting moment, and I'm very pleased. So it's exciting. I think that the country has really been through an awful lot, and I hope that this election will speak clearly for the direction of the country, so that we can really settle down and get things done.
We're talking to Congresswoman Anna Eshoo by phone on election night. Thanks for joining us. Tell us why you think the president was able to win re-election. Very tough campaign, pretty close. Perhaps not quite as much of a squeaker as everybody thought it was going to be, but still, a win's a win. Tell us what you think was behind it, Anna.
So everything is not in yet, Mark. So we don't know exactly what the popular vote is, but he has won with electoral votes, 274 to 201 right now. So we're going to have to wait. I think Florida is still out, and of course they have that's a chunk of electoral votes there too. What was it that you just asked me, though?
Tell us why you think the president is being reelected. What do you think he was able to do to make his case?
Several reasons. I think the president has, despite all of the anxiety in the country, despite some of the vitriol in the country, despite hell that everyone has really been through since the near collapse of our economy, the president has remained as a person that most Americans actually liked and admired. No one is satisfied with the pace of the return of our economy, but I think underlying everything, that sense of goodwill toward the president served him well. Now, having said that, each side will have spent about $1 billion, that's with a B, and a very, very hard-fought race. I think that Governor Romney hurt himself by having to tack so far over to the right during the primaries, and then had to do a pirouette and appear to be someone else, saying something else, believing in something else. And I think that does not go down well with people. I think the president has been consistent. I don't think his opponent was.
I know you're following what's going on in the House very closely. Is there any indication you've gotten so far about whether the Democrats are gaining seats? I think we all assume that it was just too big of a.
So far, the big news is in the Senate and the presidential. In the House, we have, as of right now, we have 2 losses of incumbents. I believe that we will have a net gain of seats, but it's still early in so many time zones in the country, and there are some close races, so it's difficult to tell. Do I think right now at 8:30 p.m. that we're going to win the House back? That's not being projected. Do I think that we will enjoy a net gain? I believe that we will. And I also predict that some of the most far-right, radically far-right Tea Party members will lose their seats tonight.
Well, that raises an interesting question because you know better than I do that an awful lot of people are sort of disenchanted with what they perceive as gridlock in Washington, a partisan gridlock that doesn't seem to be capable of governing, of getting things done. When all is said and done, $1 billion spent in the presidential campaign, God knows how much money in these House and Senate races, it looks as though we're pretty much right back where we started. What's the prospect for a different atmosphere and a different attitude toward governance in Washington?
Well, I don't think that there's a person that ran for Congress in this season that didn't hear very directly from their constituents that they want they're tired of a dysfunctional Congress. Let's put it that way. Why? Because the country is left behind. The country has been hurt. So it's going to be very interesting to see how if it does remain essentially status quo with the Democrats being in the majority in the Senate, Republicans in control of the House, and the president reelected, how it will work out. But I think that the American people are justifiably sick and tired of it. They know that they're not being served well. So it's going to take a conciliatory speaker, John Boehner. He is a mainstream conservative. I know him. I've worked with him. But he has to have people in his caucus that give him some slack so that he can negotiate with the president and that we can join in that effort. Look, we've got some big issues. I have to go back to Washington, D.C. on November 13th for a lame duck session. And so there's a lot of work to do. So I think the composition, most frankly, of the House Republicans in the majority will be highly instructive as to whether the Speaker has some leeway in order to negotiate. Now, you will recall when the grand bargain was on the table, when the Speaker went back to his caucus, they practically sawed his head off. So we couldn't do it. It just wasn't going to be done. That was $4 trillion, the president's plan, $4 trillion in cuts to help bring the budget into balance. So it's going to be interesting to see the composition of that of the caucus.
One of the things we shouldn't overlook, of course, is that we haven't seen any results, any definitive results, but I think we expect that you'll be reelected, so we don't want to have the evening pass without congratulating you on your reelection.
Well, thank you, Mark, and I think that I'm the most fortunate member of Congress. I think I get to represent the most distinguished congressional district, and they set a high standard, and I always want to go past that. So it's never lost on me what a privilege and honor it is. There are very few Americans that have ever served in the Congress of the United States, and that I do, and that I get to represent. As I said, I think the most distinguished congressional district in the country is pretty high privilege.
Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck the rest of the evening.
Thank you for having me with you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. We're going to go now to Katie Orletto, our social media whiz, going to give us some insights and thoughts and comments. What's going on, Katie?
Well, obviously, because of those results that are coming in, the Twitter feed is just trending with Obama, election 2012, all of those things that we're talking about right here are what's happening on Twitter. I'm not sure if you can see my computer or not, but there are some really great stuff coming in. One of the things is the Empire State Building. There's an Instagram photo coming up. If we can see it, it looks like it's blue. The races were going, and as the lights were going up, it would either turn blue or red. Some of the other tweets coming in, we have Barack Obama wins historic re-election. I think people are getting really excited about this, especially in Twitter. As time goes on, more social media is coming in and it's becoming more and more prominent in people's opinions, informing people's ideas about what's important and how they're really going to put their vote in. Let's see what else. There's some really great, one of my favorite things about the election is, and the internet, is the memes that come out. They're all pretty funny. So I think I'm going to kind of lighten the mood for a second and show a few of these really quick, especially some people that were at the polls. One of these, if you can see it right here. Well, we got Big Bird voting. Big Bird came out and maybe had a little bit of a vote here. You know, however, someone else, let's see, they Instagrammed one of their pictures. When they got to write in a vote, they wrote in Gangnam Style. I'm not quite sure how many votes they're going to be coming in for Gangnam Style, but at least there's one in there. One of the other things that's really interesting about this election and social media is that a lot of people are Instagramming their votes. That's not a smart idea. You're not supposed to do that in the state of California. You're supposed to keep your vote a secret. So anybody who's Instagramming their votes and how they voted, you know, you probably should watch out, and maybe, you know, you might have to answer to some people about that. If you have an opinion about how this election is going in relation to social media, is social media really having a prominent voice in this election? Let us know. Go on to Penn TV on Facebook or Twitter at PennTV26, hashtag PennTV Election Night.
Thank you, Katie. You know, it's important. The sanctity of the voting booth is one of the cornerstones of American democracy. Thanks so much. Bob, we did a rapid sequence of interviews there, a lot of which was focused on the presidential election, but also, let's get to that question I posed to Congresswoman Eshoo. After everything's been said and done, yeah, some people are in and some people are out, but we're kind of right back where we started. The president doesn't have a mandate where people really have to feel that they have to fall in line. Are we up for 4 more years of more of the same, including yet another presidential campaign that begins in about a week and a half?
You know, I think that it's going to be a test for President Obama. He's going to have to do what he wasn't able to do in the first term, and that is to try to engage the Republicans in the Senate, probably because the House is going to be difficult. But he's really got to do a better job of bringing people together. And, you know, right off the bat, they've got a clear mission, and that is to come to some kind of budget deal. They know what the deal is. They made the deal last time, and then it fell apart. They've got to be able to do it, and there's got to be leadership on all sides. But I worry, you know, if Boehner tries to make a deal, the next day he won't be Speaker anymore.
Well, in fact, my first thought was, boy, I really don't want to welcome Paul Ryan back to Congress because people don't remember. He ran for Congress at the same time he was running for vice president. Talk about hedging your bets. And then you've got Eric Cantor. I think the question isn't when, but if, but when they dump Boehner, and whether they wait to do it until after the lame duck
Mitch
session.
McConnell may also, his days may be numbered.
Yeah, because they didn't do what they're supposed to do, and they'll say they didn't do it because they weren't true to the classic conservative principles, the point Bill Whalen made. We're going to go now to Bobby. Decker to see if we can get some results on what's going on in San Mateo County. How's it going, Bobby?
Well, I would love to tell you two that there are great things going on, but they seem to be asleep at the switch up here. not here at Penn TV at the state level, getting that feed to us. As you can see here that we have 0% of the precincts again. So this is the vote for Jackie. She's pulled way ahead of her Republican opponent. I do know that the measure A is winning. I do know B is winning. I know C is a no vote. That I am pretty sure of, so I'm not giving you false information. But you and Bob and your conversation with Anna Eshoo was just fabulous. I mean, there's just so much going on here, and I think people are kind of using this social media, using electronics. And you know what? Electronics isn't always kind to us. So I'm going to bounce it back to you and try and dig up. I do know that the president supposedly has won. And I'll bounce it back.
I think what I am going to do is I'm going to take a peek at my iPad and just give you some of the San Mateo County results that are all vote by mail. They haven't done any of the other voting, but President Obama is outpointing Romney in San Mateo County, 78,000 to 32,000. No surprise there. This has really become a Democratic bastion. Jackie Spears, 68,000. She got 76% of the vote to 23% for Deborah Bacajalupi. Jackie has routinely run over 70%. Congresswoman Eshoo, who we spoke with before, 70% to 29%. So that's maybe as much as 10 points higher than she ran in the primary and in prior elections. In the state Senate district, as you would imagine, Jerry Hill is carrying San Mateo County by a bunch. He's got 75% of the vote here. We don't know about the Santa Clara County portion, but he's got more than a 45,000 vote margin here, which will probably hold him over in Santa Clara County. The 19th Assembly District, Phil Ting, there's a seat that Mark Leno vacated. He's winning easily. A portion of that is in San Mateo County, a small portion. Kevin Mullen taking on the seat that his father held. Kevin is winning with 70% of the vote to just about 30% for his challenger, Mark Gillum. Rich Gordon is winning re-election easily, 68% to 31%. And we mentioned Warren Slocum and Shelley Mazer, the hotly contested supervisorial race. Warren is at 57.78%. Shelley Mazer is 42.2%. The point of these numbers, Bob, is what percentage of the people in this county are voting by mail? And it's approaching 50% or more, isn't it? Oh,
it's probably 60% in the county. These numbers are not likely to change in any of these races. In the primary, there was no difference between the mail vote and the at the poll vote in these local races. So I'm really surprised, very much surprised at the Measure A result. I think that's the most striking thing, because San Mateo County is really speaking out loudly that they value the services of San Mateo County, and they are approving a half-cent sales tax to really try to do a lot of things here in the county that were at jeopardy. I'm
scrolling through here to find Measure A. It is passing, this is just vote by mail again, 62% to 37%. Only needed 50% plus one. So that's a huge win. And I had heard that polling showed it was getting 63% of the vote. But like you, I think I was just skeptical that it was going to stay up because people in this economy don't want to give more money. I wondered if they'd made their case. Well, clearly they did. Measure B, which is the district election, is closer, but it's still ahead handsomely, 59% to 40.95%. San Mateo County is the only county left in the state that still elects at large. That's apparently on its way out. Measure C, we talked about at the top of the show, turning the controller's office into an appointive office. And San Mateo County voters have never supported taking an office they can elect and turning it into an appointive office, and that looks like it's happening again. These vote-by-mail numbers are significant because even if it flips, there have to be enough votes left for it to be a complete reversal. And some of these leads are 30,000, 40,000 votes. It's just unlikely that the rest of the electorate's going to vote dramatically at odds with this group.
Well, if we look at the national picture, we have to assume that the Democrats have done a better job at getting people out to the vote, like they the vote by mail, the way they have nationally. So these numbers should get closer, but I don't think there's enough votes left to really turn those around.
Yeah. Let's talk again about Measure B.
Yeah.
The argument a lot of people made was that this was factionalizing San Mateo County, if you will. Why do you think people supported this?
You know, I think that, again, we've got a different electorate. It changes, although Measure C, it wouldn't appear that it has. But with B, I think people just feel that the time has come. I'm impressed if people, pay enough attention to the county to understand the difference between a district election where you've got a much smaller constituency. It should create opportunities for new people to get involved. And so, it's interesting. I don't know what kind of campaign was done on behalf of Measure B.
There wasn't much of a campaign really in either way. There was an awful lot of social media traffic, largely by people who supported it.
Yeah.
If you were on Facebook and you had, I guess, the right alignment of friends and acquaintances. Yeah. But it really wasn't an organized campaign. The San Mateo Board of Supervisors put it on the ballot largely because there was this constant debate over it, and then they essentially said, okay, let's let the voters decide. The argument against it was that you're turning this into a situation where instead of voting for 5 supervisors, you only get to vote for 1 now, and that they'll be more interested in their own parochial interests. You served as an aide to the Board of Supervisors, to Ruben Barales, a couple of other people. Do you think that will be the case, that people will focus more on their district because that's where the votes are for re-election?
You know, I also served a lot longer than I'd like to try to remember in Santa Clara County, where it was district elections. And what you find is that supervisors are very protective of their districts. They go to the county manager and they say, this person over here is getting money. I need money from my district. And so I think in terms of the operation of the county, it's not necessarily a good thing. I think San Mateo County has a long history of being run very smoothly. But in terms of democracy, I think it does open up the chance for minorities and for other people to have a real shot at a smaller district where a grassroots campaign can perhaps take hold and have a greater role than say, a person who's able to come up with a lot of money running countywide.
It does reduce the requirement that you raise a ton of money to run countywide, and that's important.
Yeah, and we saw Don Horsley and Warren Slocum. Now looks like he's going to be elected. They are people that had extraordinary name ID, and so they had a huge advantage going in. And it's hard for anybody to make up that difference without spending twice as much money as they do.
So one of the things that will be interesting in the aftermath of this election is to see within the supervisorial district that Warren Slocum and Shelley Mazer were running, if Shelley Mazer did better in the district, it might have had a better chance of winning. Bob, thanks for being here. We'll be coming back to you.
Okay.
Don't go away, and don't you go away. We're going to take a break, but we'll be right back with more and more Election 2012 Peninsula TV coverage. Stay with us.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. Follow and interact with us on Twitter at PenTV26, at Facebook.com/PenTV26. And don't forget to visit our website at PenTV.tv.
Psst. Hey, need some video work done? We can do that. We do all that video stuff. We can even put your video on that internet thingy. At Peninsula TV, we do full-blown in-studio production. Talk shows, performances, speeches, anything. Remote multi-camera production, on location, at your event. And for the budget-minded, single camcorder production in high definition. We'll take your video project from first idea to finished product. For more info, contact Peninsula TV.
10, Mills Peninsula Health Services decided to create a health and wellness television program called HealthPoint TV. We chose Peninsula Television as our production partner. HealthPoint TV exceeded our expectations. The show even won a Best Public Affairs Programming Award from the San Francisco Peninsula Press Club. Penn TV is also online, where you can enjoy HealthPoint TV as well as other excellent community programming. We'd like to thank Penn TV for the high-quality work they have consistently produced for our organization.
Hey everyone, I'm Mitch Juricic of Hooked on the Niners for my pals here at Penn TV. You know, Penn TV's been around for a while now, providing entertainment and news for our community, and these people are wonderful to work with. They're courteous, they're professional, and they've got all the state-of-the-art equipment. So if you have an idea for a television show that you'd like to do, or perhaps your company or a nonprofit, this is a great avenue for you. Take it from me. Contact the folks, the number's on the screen, and so is the website. Maybe we'll be seeing you on television.
Peninsula TV would like to thank and acknowledge the San Mateo Daily Journal as our media partner for the 2012 election special.
Hi, I'm Marshall Wilson, the Communications Director for San Mateo County. If you're looking for a place to find out what's going on in San Mateo County, as well as find any number of county and community resources, look no further than Peninsula Television and on the internet at www.penntv.tv. Peninsula Television is your source for information that impacts where you live and where you work.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. And now, back to Mark Simon.
Welcome back to Election Night 2012 here on Peninsula TV. We've been encouraging you to contact us through Facebook.com, Penn TV, and also Twitter.com/Penn TV. And we're going to go to our social media whiz, Katie Roletto, to give us the latest on what's happening out there in the blogosphere. Katie, what's going on?
In the blogosphere, in internet land. So one of the really fun things that I think is about this election is that everybody is just tweeting and Instagramming all of their pictures from the day. As you can see right here, as I hope you can see right here, there are many pictures on Instagram of first-time voters and I voted stickers. This one seems to be a mix of Romney and Obama, but we're living in a world where everything is documented and everything has a picture, and everyone has a voice, not just on the ballots but on the internet as well. Everybody, you should be sending in your pictures and hashtag Penn TV Election Night, and I would love to show it on the air. One I'm going to show really quick is from my friend Chris Roberry, who I adore very much. He he wished that this was one of the voting stickers. It is a blimp with the I voted on there, and if only he could have that on his blimp and have it flying across the sky, I think he'd be a very happy guy. So shout out to Chris Roberry. And make sure you send in your pictures, hashtag, and so I can give you a nice little high five on the air.
Katie Roletto, you know, obviously it's not only a special thing to have Katie on the show, but when you're a friend of Katie, it's a particularly special honor. Thanks, Katie. That was terrific. Bob, we're coming up on our first hour break, so let's sum up what's happened so far tonight. Most of what we're seeing, obviously, is the president's reelection. I want to talk a little bit more about the issue with Hispanics, because we saw, starting with Prop 187 back in the Wilson administration, it's almost as if the Republicans have systematically alienated themselves from a constituency you would think would have some natural Republican inclinations. You worked very closely with Ruben Morales, one of the few Republican Latinos in the state. And this must have been a source of frustration to him to see a party he respects and appreciates sort of turn its back on a whole voting bloc. What's your take on all of that?
Yeah, you know, I mean, if you look at President George W. Bush, got, I think, about 44% of the Hispanic vote. McCain got about 36%. And Romney obviously is down into the 20s. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out where it's going. And I think what you saw during the campaign is the Republicans, particularly in the House, literally an assault on Hispanic Hispanics throughout the country, a refusal to engage at all or deal with it. And I think that, we're seeing it play out. The percentage of Hispanic voters is increasing more than any other voting bloc out there. In every election, we see it. And there was talk, they're not going to turn out this time. They've turned out, I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure in huge numbers this evening. And the Republicans have got to deal with it. If they don't get serious about immigration, right away, they run the risk of a whole generation of...
and you had in Romney's case, he even tried to say something that was semi-reasonable, which is you can't send them all back.
Yeah.
You can't send them away. And he got skewered on the right for that position. So it's a position that the party has not figured out how it can manage this. And it's not, you have a fair number of conservatives who think that all they have to do is get their message out and everybody will embrace it. This is one of those cases where that strategy is clearly not working.
It's not working at all.
We're going to take another break. We're coming up on the end of our first hour here of our live election night coverage. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're watching Election Night 2012 here on Peninsula TV. Stick around.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. Follow and interact with us on Twitter at PenTV26, at Facebook.com/PenTV26. And don't forget to visit our website at PenTV.tv.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Adario, founder of the Bonnie J. Adario Lung Cancer Foundation in San Carlos, California. Our foundation partners with Penn TV to film and live stream our monthly living room program that is available to anyone in the world that has been impacted by or interested in lung cancer. We have found Penn TV to be a totally professional and highly competent organization in helping us produce and deliver our living room content. Penn TV is not only an invaluable resource to our local community, but certainly has been instrumental in helping the Adario Foundation get our message out to anyone involved with lung cancer. Please visit Penn TV on your local cable provider or on the web at www.penntv.tv to visit our living room program and to enjoy all the other informative programming that Penn TV provides. Thank you, Penn TV.
Hola, yo soy Pedro González, miembro del Consejo Municipal de la ciudad de South San Francisco, California. Soy el anfitrión del programa en español El Mundo Latino en Penn TV, canal independiente de televisión, fuente de información, noticias y programas de entretenimiento en el condado de San Mateo desde 1999. Estos recursos de información para la comunidad son invaluables y necesitan nuestro apoyo y soporte. Les pedimos formar la costumbre de ver los programas de Penn TV en el cable proveedor de su televisor. También tiene la opción de verlo en PennTV.tv. Si desea proveer ayuda financiera, vaya a PennTV.tv y oprima la tecla Donate, que quiere decir donación. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Tonight's Live Election Night Special is brought to you by
Today Sotheby's International Realty, bringing new technology to a 200-year-old tradition while serving the San Francisco Peninsula, Silicon Valley, and clientele worldwide.
San Mateo County Office of Elections. Peninsula TV would like to thank and acknowledge the San Mateo Daily Journal as our media partner for the 2012 Election Special. You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. And now, back to Mark Simon.
Welcome back to Election Night 2012 here on Peninsula TV. We're joined now by Democratic heavyweight Joe Cochette, who on this very show said he was for Obama, interview several weeks ago, but was not at all confident that the president was going to win re-election.
I am frankly blown away. Please excuse my voice. I've been yelling all night at the screen. I am blown away by what happened tonight. But there's a message there, isn't there? And it's clear that Obama and his people got out the vote, because it's all about getting out the vote. And when you look across the country, around college towns, around urban areas, it is the youth vote that put Obama into the realm of winning. And the Republican Party forgot about youth. And you cannot tell a woman what she's going to do with her body if she's 21, 22, 23, 24 years old. I mean, at some point in time, the Republicans are going to wake up, I think. I hope not, I think, and understand that there's a new world out there. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to be fascinated by what the Republican Party is going to say about Mitt Romney. They're going to claim, the old diehards are going to claim, see, we nominated a moderate, and we should not have. We should have had a real conservative guy in there. They're going to blame him tomorrow for not being conservative enough, right?
Well, that would be the pattern, yeah.
I mean,
because
that's the pattern.
if he'd held true to his conservative ideals,
of course.
Because the conviction behind that is that the nation is actually more conservative than the elections show, and that if people adhered to the true convictions of conservatism, they'd win on the natural.
And that is the mantra you're going to hear tomorrow from the Republican Party, and they're absolutely wrong. That is not a fact. The fact of the matter is, when you look at America today, the color of people we're talking to is changing. And what is it? In just a few years, 50% of the population will be a minority, so to speak, population. The Republican Party does not understand the way we have to grow, the way we have to understand, the way we have to treat women. I mean, this whole business about putting women in a binder. I mean, that was the most extraordinary statement I've ever heard. I was out looking for women, and they gave me a binder. That's phenomenal, right?
Yeah. The way you put
I mean, legitimate rape. I mean, anyone knows that there's some rapes that are legitimate and others that aren't.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, any woman knows what sperm comes into her body is going to be legitimate or not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's preposterous.
Well, there were a lot of interesting things said. What do you think the president did right? You talked about tactically getting out the vote, but what do you think were the messages that he may have offered up that adhered to people, that people embraced? Was it largely you want 4 more years of me because you don't want 4 more years,
well,
4 years of this guy?
Let's start with saving the automobile industry. Look at that whole specter across the top of Ohio. Huh? That was critical. Mm-hmm. Look at Indiana tonight, elected a Democratic senator. Again, the car industry, the automobile industry that he saved, he went out on a limb to do that. He went out on a limb with the TARP program. You know, I didn't think he was that dynamic. I was disappointed in him as a president over the past 4 years. But clearly, he had a plan. They all had a plan as to what they were doing because they got another 4 years. And I think you're going to see a different situation now. The tragedy is that the Republicans are going to lockstep again, and we could go through another 4 years, could we not, of a do-nothing Congress?
Have we ended up pretty much right where we started when this whole campaign began?
It looks like we have, unless Harry Reid gets rid of that 60-vote rule in the Senate.
On the filibuster.
And we all know what we're talking about?
Yeah.
That is the critical rule to make government work, that 60-vote rule.
Yeah. What you're talking about is the vote takes 60 votes to end a filibuster. The threat of filibuster is what prevents people from acting.
Which is found nowhere in the United States Constitution.
Yeah.
It is found nowhere in a rule. It is a rule that has been developed by senators themselves to have a friendly House.
You were disappointed in Obama. You said so publicly for quite a while.
Yes.
Do you think he's learned something? Because really what he was a man who clearly loved policy more than politics, and if he had a passion for what he was doing, was not able to communicate it.
Oh, I think he had a passion, and I think he's a great communicator. He just couldn't figure out. I mean, there's a great book out. I apologize, it's late in the night for him. He's got to spend 2 to 3 weeks figuring out where to go. I mean, the whole story about getting Osama bin Laden. Mm-hmm. I mean, that took him months and months of struggle to make that decision. But I think we're going to see a different Obama in the next 4 years. I think he was a little taken back with the overwhelmingness of the presidency. I mean, this was what, a community organizer?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden he's in the most expensive house in the United States, if not the world.
Yeah.
By the way, I think this House just sold for, what was it, $2 billion? Yeah. $1 billion on either side?
Yep.
Most expensive piece of real estate in the nation.
Yeah, and it doesn't really appreciate very well.
No, it doesn't. By the way, I just came from Jackie Spears, and she wanted me to give you these wonderful red, white, and blue jelly beans because she knows you're a sourpuss and you need some sugar.
I've always been sweet to Jackie. What can I tell you? Real quick, where's the Democratic Party? You're really active in the Democratic Party.
I am very active.
You've been a major donor, fundraiser, supporter in races all over the country.
Yes. I'm proud to say that.
Democrats are doing very well in the Senate races, better than people expected.
Blown away tonight by Elizabeth Warren.
Because something like 22 of the 33 seats that were up were Democrat seats, and they're basically holding their own. What kind of shape is the Democratic Party in?
Oh, I think the party is going to be elevated tremendously tomorrow. I think there's going to be a tremendous buoyancy. I think there's going to be a whole new exciting spirit over these next 4 years. But there's a lot of work to be done. We're a divided country. I mean, look at the popular vote tonight. Mm-hmm. It's going to come out close to 50-50, right? Therein lies the problem. So we have a lot of hand-holding to do. We got a lot of crossing the aisle to go through. It's going to be a very tough next 4 years because we are now becoming a global economy, we are no longer going to be able to put a widget out on the street and not compete with Brazil, China, and everywhere else. And that's the problem not only the Democrats face, but the Republicans face. We're going to come up on a financial cliff, aren't we? What is it, December 31st?
Yes.
A real financial cliff.
If they don't do something in the lame duck session.
Yeah. And you've got these Tea Party members that take the attitude, screw you, I'm going to do X. Don't want to talk.
Joe Carchet, thanks for being here. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Mark.
As always,
it's always a pleasure.
We'll talk to you around
some of those jelly beans. It'll soften you up. It'll make you a good guy.
Joe, thanks so much.
Sure.
We're going to go now to Bobby Decker and see if we can get some more results. Bobby.
Well, hi there. And Mark, I'm going to get you some results. I have my iPad, so I'm a happy camper again. With the United States Senate, we do have Dianne Feinstein easily handling her Republican opponent, and she is going to once again be our senator. Next, we have Jackie Spear and Deborah. And as you can see, Jackie, as you said, Mark, gets usually over that 70%, and she's at 77. Then we're going to switch to Anna Eshoo. We see her at almost 70%. Again, just absolutely running past the Republican candidate. With Mark Leno, we have the 11th Senate District. He is winning handily. He's at 80%. Then we've got Jerry Hill that just came up on the board. And again, you see that he's winning. Once again, we go down to the 19th. Phil Ting is at 63%. Kevin Mullen. And I'm just trying to get you caught up on these. I'm not going to do this every time you flip back to me, but I just want to catch you up on the figures. We've got 70% for Kevin. We've got Rich Gordon at 68%. And then Warren Slocum is at 57%. And now we have our propositions. Proposition 30, which is your temporary taxes to fund education. You see that that is really, really close. I'd like to say that one is going to win, yes or no, but it's very close. And we don't have many of the precincts in. You can see it's just 14% there. Proposition 31 with the state budget, again, 14% of the precincts that are showing, we've got 50-50. These are close. People are very passionate about one side or the other. Do we have 33 to pull up? There we are. The auto insurance, driver history. Look at that. We've got 52 to 48. And again, that is if there's a lapse in your auto insurance that you will not be able to get the best rate. And people are not happy about that. You've got Proposition 34, the death penalty being repealed. No vote and versus your 43% for your yes. So that one's pulling a little bit ahead. You've got your Proposition 37, the genetically engineered food labeling. Again, no, 58% and 42% yes. And I really believe, as does Mark, that's because there's a lot of confusion on that. I used to teach biology, anatomy, physiology. And I have to tell you, I didn't really understand what they were talking about because it looked like there were some people that were exempt and some people that were not. The tax for education, early childhood programs. We've got your 75%, so that's pretty much running away. You've got Proposition 30. Well, no, we're going to go to the Harbor District and look at this. You've got 24% of the people voting for Sabrina. She's a new person on the scene. And we've got 3 incumbents that were running. So that's going to be an extremely interesting race to watch. You've got only 26% vote of the precincts on that one. Now we're at 36%, 37% for the Sequoia Healthcare District, the Board of Directors, with Kim Griffin leading, but only by a teensy little bit. Now, Measure A, you can see Measure A has just run away. So everybody knows San Mateo County needs that money. They're willing to do that 0.5%. We've got Measure B. Is that going to flip up? Yes, it is. With 26%, you've got 59% voting yes to 41%, and that is, I believe, Mark, is that to keep it as an overall at large, as opposed?
Measure C. The election is about having the controller.
Yeah,
well,
no, they just switched it out.
Measure,
I know.
Measure
See,
B,
there's that little hesitation. Yeah. Thanks for jumping in.
To go back
now
to
you
Measure
know
B
how
for a
I
second.
feel. Yeah.
To go back to Measure B, Measure B is passing, and that is requiring that supervisors run by district rather than being elected at large.
Okay.
Since the county was started, they've been elected at large. This is a historic change in how the county elects its Board of Supervisors.
And they're not going with the historic change as far as C.
Measure C. Measure
That's
C,
right.
The county has historically not voted to turn into an appointive office a position that was elective, and they're following that trend. They don't want to give up the right to elect their controller. That's an important, I guess, an important distinction to have.
Well, thank you, Mark. And again, I'll get the hang of this, but we've got a lot to go over this evening, so you just stay tuned and we'll get to every single one of these votes by the end of the evening. Thanks.
We're joined now by Marshall Wilson, who is the Communications Director for the County of San Mateo, close on the heels of the vote on Measure A. I think a lot of people thought this was going to be a lot closer. What can you interpret from these results, Marshall?
I think here in San Mateo County, we really have a really high quality of life here, and there's a certain cost to that. And I think Measure A, people are willing to pay out of their pocketbook for local services. I know the governor's measure, Prop 30, is very, very close right now, too close to call. That money there goes off to the state. People don't know where it goes. Here, Measure A, I think the point was made that the money is going to be here kept locally. And what many people don't know, and I think the point has been made in this that people do know this. I think in the past we've said they don't know what county government does. I think people might be beginning to understand it. The county operates a medical center. The county operates many, many functions, human services, social services, the sheriff's office, a health system that handles health care not only for the indigent but for many, many people. And I think what we can interpret by the high vote count for Measure A is people appreciate those services. We don't have a lot of poverty here in San Mateo County. We have some, but not a lot. The county is a safety net for that, and Measure A is going to help boost up that safety net.
The measure that was on the ballot is non-specific. It just goes to county services, and it's one of those weird anomalies in the law that essentially a blank check requires a simple majority, but if it was for a specific thing, it requires a 2/3. We can anticipate, I guess, a long line of people outside the Board of Supervisors chambers lined up saying that their program needs this money. But there are certain county programs that this money would go to directly. It sounds like health care would be one of the most important ones.
I think health care, that is one of the primary functions of county government, is health care, social services, public safety. And again, this is a non-specific tax. That's the way the state law is set up. And I personally think it is an oddity. If you're going to say very specifically what the tax goes for, that's a 2/3 majority. If you say it's a general tax, it's a simple majority. But I think there will be a lot of people lining up for those funds, and it's going to be a challenge, I think, for the Board of Supervisors moving forward to decide how to spend those. But I think it's also important that a lot of that money, I think, is probably going to be what we call in county government backfilling cuts from the state. What we're seeing right now over the past number of years is state and federal cutbacks in funding for county programs. So the county gets a lot of money, considerable amount from the state and from the federal governments. That's been declining. I think this will go to what we call backfilling it, to really maintain a lot of the programs we have. I wouldn't look for, and again, I'm not the elected board members, but I wouldn't look for a lot of big splashy new programs. I think a lot of this is going to be going to maintaining and protecting what we have today. And I think that message resonated with voters.
A lot of suspicion was aroused, if that's the right word, for the fact that Seton Hospital in Daly City was the major contributor, backer of this measure. If it's not specific, then how does this work? What's the explanation for why, if some of this money goes to Seton, that money should go to Seton? What county services are impacted by the presence or the absence of that money going to Seton?
Well, again, this is a general tax. Nothing has been decided that it is going to Seton, but Seton was a major funder of this. What's important to remember is that Seton Medical Center in Daly City, I believe, and I'm not positive this is true, so maybe I shouldn't say it, but I will anyway, that Seton,
You've come to the right
I've
place,
come to the right
yeah.
place for that, does more for indigent care than the county hospital does. And is a tremendous source of care for the poor, the elderly, in the North County, obviously. Now, because of state requirements that are obviously good requirements that emergency rooms, medical centers must meet very high earthquake standards, Seton is going to have to, what I understand, essentially rebuild their medical center and their medical facilities. So I believe they're going to be asking the county for assistance in that. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a decision the board will have to make moving forward and weighing all the other options for spending.
Yeah. Marsha Wilson, Communications Director for the County of San Mateo, thanks for dropping by here. That'll teach you to come in here.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks so much for being with us. We're going to go over now to our social media maven, Katie Orlando. What's going on over there, Katie?
I like that, social media maven. I think I'll put that on my resume.
Thanks.
So one of the results from tonight is that, of course, President Barack Obama is going to be serving another term, which means, unfortunately for some, that Roseanne Barr is not. Roseanne Barr is one of the trending topics on Twitter right now. Unfortunately for Roseanne, a lot of them are really that people got to the polls and they looked to their ballots and they were surprised that Roseanne was even on the ballot. I'm really hoping that a lot of people didn't waste their vote and for something that probably was kind of a far stretch as it was. But, people can do what they want to do. Some of the topics on Roseanne are 7,600 Floridians voted for this woman. Roseanne, it's okay. You're always in my heart. And then there's, of course, a beautiful Instagram photo of Roseanne. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Roseanne because it's, no dream is ever too far, but thank God that one wasn't very close. One more thing I want to end with each segment. I think I should start ending these segments with a meme. I'm going to bring up another one of my favorite ones. It's not a very good meme, I think, if there aren't cats involved. This one is some kitties voting. I don't know what it is about the internet and memes, but you love your cats, don't you? This is voted one of the top memes for the election is kitties in a ballot box. I'm Katie Roletta with always the hard-hitting news and always the hard-hitting topics. If you want to tweet your photos, if you have an opinion, please tweet us. We're at PennTV26 or we're on Facebook at PennTV.
Thanks, Katie. Good job. You're having fun over there, I can tell.
Yeah, tons.
We got Bob back here to talk a little bit about some of these local results. It's interesting. Almost up and down the peninsula, incumbents are winning. There's one exception, and that's Kelly Ferguson in Menlo Park, who managed to create her own measure of controversy a couple of different ways. One was she was accused of lobbying behind the scenes to be elected mayor by her colleagues. The rules are you can lobby one other colleague. If you lobby a third one, you've broken the rules of the Brown Act by trying to make a behind-the-scenes deal with the majority of the council. That created quite a bit of controversy for her. There was also a major pension reform measure on the ballot in Menlo Park that she opposed. It passed with over 70% of the vote. That seems to have been a factor in her not being reelected. But by and large, incumbents are winning. What does that tell you about the voters in San Mateo County?
Well, historically, I don't know what the percentage is, but my guess is it's in the very high 90s. City council incumbents almost always win. You've really got to go out of your way to lose a city council race if you're an incumbent, historically. And we've seen examples over the years of people who have so alienated so many people that at some point it just catches up with them.
Yeah. Anything else? Have you had a chance to take a look at some further results? What are you seeing on your own?
Well, you know,
analysis?
I'm looking at some of the state propositions, and it's, you know, they're very close. Proposition 30 is losing at this point, but it's close, and it's hard to say how the precinct votes are going to turn out there, whether they're going to be more favorable. You don't know where the votes are coming from. If, you know, Los Angeles is traditionally a very late reporting county, so that's still in the ball game. The death penalty measure is also losing, which, again, we talked about earlier. I'm not really surprised, but I do think, again, it's one of those things where voters are moving slowly towards having more and more questions with that measure.
Have you looked at Prop 37 at all, the food labeling?
I did look at that, and that's losing also. You know, I think it's got about 43% right now in favor of it, so I suspect that one will go down to defeat. But you know, it's still early. Only about 30% of the state votes have been counted, so there's a long way to go.
Now, a massive chunk of the votes that have been counted so far in San Mateo County are vote by mail.
Right.
Is that true probably throughout the rest of the state, that those are also vote by mail ballots? Because it gets back to a point you made earlier in the evening, that those probably are more heavily Democratic, probably more heavily liberal than the rest of the electorate, because they were turned out by the Obama campaign, which really did a good job of getting its ground game going. So something like Prop 30, I would think that does not bode well if it's barely, if it's touch and go right now with what is likely to be the most liberal bunch of voters.
Right. It may not. You know, right now they're showing about 30% of the votes reporting. From my understanding, California was going to have about 60% vote by mail. And so there are a lot of votes there. About half of those votes are not counted yet. So I don't know whether that's problems at the county levels and where those problems are. So it's too hard. I think it's too hard at this point to make any definitive judgment.
Anything else going on the ballot that you looked at?
You know, look, that covers it for the state. Locally, you know, there doesn't seem to be a lot of surprises here locally.
There are a couple of interesting races. One is, rarely do we have a big race for the San Mateo County Harbor District, which governs the area out north of Half Moon Bay. Right. But we had a really aggressive campaign by a woman named Sabrina Brennan, who is the top vote getter. The two incumbents, Leo Pedretti, who's been on there forever, and Pietro Paravano, who's
also been there for a while,
have been reelected. Pietro had a better reputation among environmentalists than Pedretti did, but in both cases, they looked to have been safe. The person who suffers from the success of Sabrina Brennan is Will Holsinger, a name from our past.
Yes.
We both knew his father, Joe Holsinger, very well, and it looks as though he's not going to be reelected to the Harbor District. The other one that's interesting is this, and a little strange, a little quirky, is the Sequoia Healthcare District Board of Directors. Jack Hickey was not up for reelection. He's the guy, the dissident, who's run for that board under the premise that the district should be dissolved and the money go back to the taxpayers, which is not quite as simple a task as he thinks. The proponents of the district think the money's being well spent on healthcare programs and charitable good works. He thinks that's not what the district was set up for. He ran for an open seat under the premise that if he wins that seat, even though he has to give up his other seat, it's sort of a mandate for his point of view. They'd have to fill his vacancy with somebody of like mind, and it would demonstrate again that the voters think the seat ought to be that the district ought to be dissolved. Well, unfortunately for him, he's losing. Three-candidate race for 2 seats, and he's finishing third. Now, it's pretty close, but he's a good 8 to 10 points behind the other 2 candidates, which doesn't bode well. You and I have both known Jack Hickey for a long time. I guess this is an example of maybe over-interpreting your own election. Yeah. It's an easy trap to fall into, I guess.
I think Jack, like a lot of political figures that we see, tend to live in their own world sometimes a little too much and get caught up with how they fit into the rest of the world. And, you know, I think people do kind of as we talked about with some city council people, they kind of overstay their welcome. And so we'll see. You know, I suspect Jack will not go away.
No, well, he has no reason to be honest with you. We were talking about the state ballot measures. I was just quickly glancing at how San Mateo County voted, and on Prop 30, San Mateo County is voting for that like 20 points higher in support. Prop 32, which is being defeated, but probably not dramatically so, but is being defeated by a wider margin in San Mateo County. You've been here for a long time. You were involved in Republican politics for a long time. How did San Mateo County become such a Democratic/liberal bastion? Because clearly they're way ahead of the state in terms of the liberal position on some of these issues.
Yeah, you know, San Mateo County is obviously moved. We can remember back, you know, in the 1980s, late 1970s, where Republicans played a very big role in this county. But we've seen a steady move over the last several decades to where the county has really become a Democratic county. The other thing is we've got a lot of new people moving into this county, a lot of young people, a lot of people with high incomes. And so I think we're seeing this county shift even a little bit more and probably moving even further towards the Democrats in the future.
Bob, we'll have you back shortly.
Okay.
We're gonna go to Bobby now and try and get some more results. Bobby, what you got going on over there?
Oh, well, Mark, I'll tell you what, I think that the city council people are starting to feel a little ignored. So I'm going to give you a really local look at the city councils, and we'll start with the town of Atherton. And you have got Elizabeth Lewis and Carrie Weist are the top two vote getters. Then we go to the other side of the peninsula, which is Daly City members. Now you've got two seats there, and then David Campagna and Sal Torres are ahead there. You've got the City of Daly City Clerk, and Annette Hipona has got that at 61.06%. You've got Daly City Treasurer, and this man has 100% of the vote because no one is running against him, Mark. Then we go to the city of East Palo Alto, where the top three vote getters are Laura Martinez, Larry Moody, and Peter Evans. That's Peter Evans. City of Half Moon Bay, you've got the city council members, Farmer John Mueller, and then you've got Marina Frazier. You have in the city of Menlo Park for city council, you have Ray Mueller and Catherine Carlton. City of Pacifica, we now have a full term with Karen Irvin and then Mary Ann Neihart. And City of Pacifica City Council, which is short term, is Mike O'Neill. He is the lead vote getter at this point at 33%. The closest one is Victor Spano, and he's at 28%. And then you just covered the Board of Commissioners for the Harbor District, so I'm going to just shoot it back to you. I know you have another interesting guest.
Yes, thanks, Bobby. Very well, good. The city council races are really interesting because it says something about incumbents and how well they do. I believe we now have Jackie Spear standing by via Skype. Jackie, hello. Congratulations on your re-election.
I'm going to say hello first, Mark,
hi,
before
Danny.
you say hello to Jackie, and thanks for tossing it up to us. We're over at the Congresswoman Spears election office here. Congratulations. May I be the first from Peninsula TV to say congratulations, and I think Mark Simon wants to say congratulations as well. He's there at the studio.
Congratulations, Jackie. How's it going?
Congratulations. I don't have an earpiece on, so I can't hear him.
You don't. He's actually talking into my ear, and he's saying congratulations to you.
Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Danny, why don't you go ahead and do the interview now?
I'd like to ask a couple of questions. I know we've torn you away from your constituents who also want to say great congratulations on your reelection. But as we see and hear the results coming in, not only for your campaign, for other Democrats within the nation, how are you feeling about the Democrats holding the House votes and or the Senate holding the and or taking ground in the Senate Democrat votes.
So the Senate looks very good, and it looks like we will probably pick up 1 or 2 seats, which will give them a strong majority under which to operate. The House looks like we're going to eke out maybe 5 to 10 seats, but probably not more than that. We will not regain the House. And what we have to make sure happens as we all go back to Congress next week is make sure that everyone, puts down their weaponry and their vitriolic language, and let's get back to business. Let's talk about the issues the American people care about. They want jobs. Let's turn this economy around. It's no more a cat and mouse game of trying to make sure you defeat Barack Obama. He's been reelected. He's going to serve another 4 years. Let's all work together. I spoke earlier to my gathering and talked about the presidential seal, which is also the House and Senate seal. And the eagle on that seal has a banner in its beak that's E pluribus unum, from many one. And that's the kind of, I think, mindset we've got to go back to Washington. We've got to come together, and we've got to solve these problems. We've got to fix the tax code. We've got to balance this budget, get rid of the national, not get rid of it, but certainly reduce the national debt so it's no longer $16 trillion, because our kids don't deserve to be burdened with that kind of debt that would really just ratchet down economic growth in this country in the worst way.
Well, I think we all appreciate what you bring to the seat. You had mentioned earlier that tonight is a night of celebration. You get to sleep well, and then it's back to work tomorrow. I think you've heard from the national public that we do want to unlock the gridlock. And I think you've been touted as one of the individuals who just may have that key. What do you think is the key to unlocking that gridlock when we are so much in a numbers game, looking at who has the majority number of seats and or who can regain or who can't regain? How do we just simply build consensus?
I think the president's going to be in a very good position to do that now. He's going to have a decisive victory here. And I think with that in his pocket, with the Senate strongly Democratic, it's really going to require us that we're part of the Tea Party coalition is going to be a strong message to the Republicans. It's important to remember that if Ronald Reagan were alive today and running for office, he wouldn't get elected to office as a Republican because he wasn't conservative enough. And yet he is extolled as the conservative leader of the Republican Party. So I think we've really got to get back to some basics. We've got to get out of people's bedrooms. I mean, we spent so much time in the last session, in this session, trying to fend off, which became the number one priority of the Republican majority, and that was to get rid of contraception, get rid of Planned Parenthood, and repeal Roe versus Wade. 55 votes against women's health in this session of Congress. It's one a week. And when you add up the debate, you're talking about a lot of time wasted on something that's already been decided. Let's fix the economy.
Well, I think you're going to receive a lot of support in ensuring that we're focusing on not just generating bills, but passing bills and creating bills that are touching our country and are meaningful, and that we have something that we can back behind. I think that we're also learning through social media and through folks that are twittering and putting conversations out there, which is a great thing, that we're not really trusting what these bills are all about. Is there something hidden? What's the story we don't know? So how do we communicate to the general public that we are in fact saying and doing and implementing what we say we're doing?
Well, here's something that should give us all reason to pause. If Prop 30 goes down, it is going to be the most draconian cuts the state has witnessed in terms of education and so many other services. And Governor Brown made that very clear as he went around the state. Now, the fact that that didn't register strongly enough in the electorate suggests we've got a lot of work to do, because basically they're not trusting us. So we got to make sure that we are trustworthy and that people will believe the words that come out of our mouths. I think that I've had a couple of incidences on the floor of the House where I took on colleagues because they were just telling falsehoods. We're supposed to be speaking the truth.
Right. And I think the onset of social media sort of allowed us to ensure that we are actually speaking the truth. I mean, it's really holding people accountable, both on a social level and a political level, to ensure that, because it's now taped, it's now out there for all to see and hear and replay and fact check. I'd just like to ask you one last question. What is your vision that you'd like to tell your constituents at Peninsula TV and your viewers from San Mateo County?
I'm going back recharged. I'm committed to fix what ails us in this country right now, which means we've got to focus with a laser on job creation. Job leadership. We've got to look at ways of creating jobs in this country. We've got to bring greater accountability to the federal government. We don't need to make ships that sink and planes that can't fly, and we can't continue to give the Department of Defense a blank check. We can't afford that. And I think we've got to take very good care of our veterans, and we have been doing a lackluster job of making sure that veterans' claims are properly processed. So I'm going to go back willing and able to do all of those things.
Thank you, Congresswoman Speier, on your re-election, and also to folks in Peninsula TV. It looks like we've got a national message of forward, hope, cooperation, collaboration, and fiscal conservative. So thank you so much again for joining us, and I'm tossing it back to Mark in the pit.
Danny, thanks a lot. Please tell Jackie thanks for the jelly beans. See if I can soften up my disposition a little bit along the way.
Mark wants me to tell you that he says thank you for the jelly beans. It's hoping it will soften his disposition.
Good. Well, I hope you're taking some, right?
Well,
we will take some back to the studio.
Jackie, while I've got you here, I can't resist a political question on a political night.
Okay, Mark has one last question for you that he'd like me to ask you.
Okay.
Of course, the rumors are always flying about you because you're so popular. Are you thinking about running for another office, maybe running statewide in 2 years?
So he's already on the rumor trail. I guess it's out there in social media. Are you thinking about any future run for something?
You know, that sounds like the Mark of yesteryear.
Not enough
always
jelly
the
beans.
reporter, always wanting to get the scoop. I'm going back to Washington to do my job, Mark.
All right, Jackie, thanks so much for being with us. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again, Mark. We'll see you guys soon.
Yeah. We're joined now by Nick Calderon. Works for the County of San Mateo, worked on Capitol Hill for quite a while. And Nick is here to give us a little more perspective. We've been talking a lot in the evening about the Hispanic vote, the Latino vote, and what kind of impact Nick had on the presidential election. And by all accounts, it looks like, based on exit polls, that it was a substantial block of votes that went to Obama. What's your assessment of it? What's your analysis of this vote?
Yeah, you know, I think I definitely think it played a factor in first Florida. You know, Romney had no shot of winning without winning Florida, and he didn't lose Florida by that much. I think last I saw, it's about 40,000. Florida has a large Hispanic population, and he just did not. He didn't do what he needed to get the support there. You know, he also lost Nevada. He lost New Mexico, which both used to be swing states and now are really more Democratic states. You know, it's hard to win the Hispanic vote when you're talking about self-deportation, and you're coming from a party in general that spends most of their time alienating this group of people instead of seeing what they can do to help. And I think that definitely played a factor.
You know, we've been talking about the Latino vote and the Hispanic vote in California for 25, 30 years. And I think a lot of Republicans think that on the natural, there should be a good chunk of Hispanic voters who would vote Republican because they tend to be socially on the more conservative side. Economically, they probably tend to be a little more conservative. Is that a fair assessment? And why hasn't the Republican Party made more inroads into that constituency?
You know, I absolutely think that's an accurate statement. You know, Hispanics are, you know, I often think this as well, that, you know, they're a natural fit for the Republican Party. They fit this description that the Republicans always talk about, you know, coming to the United States and pulling yourself up from the bootstraps and finding your American dream. And, you know, they also have that religious value. However, the Republicans are not making an effort to include them in the party. When you have states like Arizona, you have states like Alabama passing their strict immigration bills, you really push your younger population, you really push your Latinos to the Democratic side, whether that's really where they want to be or not. That's where they're accepted. And you know, I did work down in Arizona, and you see, you know, I worked for the committee that passed Arizona's immigration bill right out of college, and there, you know, there are thousands of people protesting, young people, old people, and these younger kids who are getting ready to start voting, you know, they don't want anything to do with the Republican Party. You know, they're not welcome.
Is immigration that hard an issue? I mean, it certainly looks like there's no simple solution. Is it a tough issue and is it the kind of issue where if you wade into it, no matter what you do, you're going to get people mad at you?
I think it is. I think, you know, I think the Republicans as a whole have really taken this stance against it, where Democrats have really worked to embrace recent immigrants and the Latino culture. I think there's a lot of aspects surrounding it, whether it be you know, people coming here to work, or you know, down in border states you have your drugs and your human trafficking. So I think there are a lot of different aspects surrounding it that don't get the proper attention, and they all get lumped into one. Mm-hmm. And so I think I think, you know, it's kind of a hot topic, and you know, Republicans like to fight against it because it mobilizes their base, whereas Democrats are doing they're doing the complete opposite. And but I think going forward, I think if the Republicans are going to want to have a shot nationwide, they're going to have to change their approach.
If we can talk for just a moment about San Mateo County, mm-hmm. and we just looks like a measure on the ballot passed that will require people to run and be elected by district. Mm-hmm. One of the arguments the proponents made for that measure is that it will improve the chances of electing minorities and have the Board of Supervisors perhaps ethnically more accurately reflect the demographics of San Mateo County. Do you think that's going to be the case, or is that a little soon to say?
I disagree with that completely. What you do is you take people who are sitting on city councils, and you're using city councils as essentially a feeder into the Board of Supervisors. Specifically, you know, in District 1, you know, I think that's going to be more up for grabs. But District 2, it's always going to be a City of San Mateo person. District 3, you know, San Carlos or Pacifica may have an advantage there. District 4, which is the one that everyone thinks is going to go to a minority because you have East Palo Alto, you have North Fair Oaks, that's going to be a Redwood City person every time. It's the biggest city in the district. So I actually think it's going to be counterproductive to what the people think it's going to do. I think the other thing is you reduce your chances. You know, you're talking about the Latino vote here. You know, Ruben Morales, who was on the board for his Latino, you know, he didn't come from a city council, and I think you know, you're reducing your abilities or your chance of getting someone, you know, a good supervisor like Ruben Morales. You reduce your chance of getting him on the board.
Nick Calderon, thanks for dropping by tonight.
Absolutely.
Good
Thank
to see you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We're going to go now to Bobby Decker and get some more election results. Bobby.
Yes, here you are. You're back with me again, and I'm just scrolling very happily through the iPad. We are going to be talking about the school district measures. And Measure D in Burlingame, as you can see, that's 63% yes. That is going to be passed, it looks like. And you've got Jefferson Elementary School District, Measure I. Now, all of these measures are either for bonds or a parcel tax or a transient hotel tax, but it's to bring money back into the system for these particular cities because they have just been so decimated by the loss of the redevelopment funds and everything else. So I thought that it would be much tighter on some of these races, and they surprised me. People are wanting to make sure that their schools stay great and that their funds are used for the improvements that they so badly need. Jefferson Union High School, they're at 71%, almost 71.5%. You've got San Bruno Park School District, Measure G, and that's 55.5 to 44. So, you know, we're going to have to see. That's kind of almost even there, and that is a parcel tax. That will be $199 for, I believe, 5 years. I'll have to check my notes on that one, 3 or 5. San Carlos, Measure H is passing. You've got your town of Atherton. Measure F was for the relocation of the library. That looks like they just don't want that to happen. It's 68%. Town of Atherton again, Measure L was for improvements to the park, and L is for improvements to the town center, and then M is improvements for the Holbrook Park. And you've got the city of San Mateo, Measure J. Again, you can see that's close, but right now it's winning. And then you've got the city of Menlo Park, Measure K, and that one's handily winning. So I've gone over the measures, Mark. I'll let you know what happens as more votes come in.
Thanks, Bobby. We're now going to go to Katie Rolano, who is spending her time monitoring the blogosphere. I think we called you social media maven earlier, so take it away, Katie.
I said I was going to put that on my resume. I like that a lot. Social media maven. So one of the most interesting things about this election is how prominent social media is in terms of election results and election getting the input on what the props are and what the measures are. As Danny had mentioned, it's really how a lot of people online are getting to answer questions, getting answers, really trying to dig what these measures and what these props are about. So now that the president has been called and deemed the winner for the next 4 years, people on Facebook and Twitter are now on to these measures and to these props that are coming in slowly. So one of the really great things about Facebook is how much they're really encouraging people to get out there and vote. People on Facebook, I have a Facebook app on my phone, and I got a little ping saying, hey, get out there and vote today. Okay, Facebook, sure, because you said so. So I did. As soon as I got online, it said, hey, did you vote today? I said, yes, Facebook, I did vote today. The great thing is that they're really trying to track how many people are on Facebook, because there are a lot of people on Facebook, so their numbers would be pretty close, and how many people are voting. They have this tracker, how many people in the nation are voting at real time. I assume this is how many people are clicking onto Facebook and saying, yes, I voted. They are also seeing how many votes per hour and when it's peaking, and they're really getting these demographics down, which is just very interesting, and something that wouldn't have happened even 4 years ago. As promised, I have to end every segment with a meme because, well, I just can't be too dry. So my one that I picked out for this segment is this guy. It says, you mean to tell me Americans use Facebook to decide how to vote? Unfortunately, little boy, I'm pretty sure that's how it is. Or fortunately, depending on how you look at it and how much you dig to get your answers. If you have something to say, come to Penn TV on Facebook. We're under Peninsula Television, or on Twitter at PennTV26. Hashtag Penn TV Election Night, and I'll read your questions and your answers and your opinions and your pictures, all that stuff, put it on the air.
Thanks, Katie. You're watching Election 2012 on Peninsula TV. We're on here until midnight. We're going to take a break right now. Stick around. We've got a lot more show ahead. We'll be right back.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. Follow and interact with us on Twitter at PennTV26, at Facebook.com/PennTV26. And don't forget to visit our website at PennTV.tv.
Psst. Hey, need some video work done? We can do that. We do all that video stuff. We can even put your video on that internet thingy. At Peninsula TV, we do full-blown in-studio production, talk shows, performances, speeches, anything. Remote multi-camera production, on location, at your event. And for the budget-minded, single camcorder production in high definition. We'll take your video project from first idea to finished product. For more info, contact Peninsula TV.
10, Mills Peninsula Health Services decided to create a health and wellness television program called HealthPoint TV. We chose Peninsula Television as our production partner. HealthPoint TV exceeded our expectations. The show even won a Best Public Affairs Programming Award from the San Francisco Peninsula Press Club. Penn TV is also online, where you can enjoy HealthPoint TV as well as other excellent community programming. We'd like to thank Penn TV for the high-quality work they have consistently produced for our organization.
Hey everyone, I'm Mitch Jurisich of Hooked on the Niners for my pals here at Penn TV. You know, Penn TV has been around for a while now, providing entertainment and news for our community, and these people are wonderful to work with. They're courteous, they're professional, and they've got all the state-of-the-art equipment. So if you have an idea for a television show that you'd like to do, or perhaps your company or a nonprofit, this is a great avenue for you. Take it from me. Contact the folks. The number's on the screen, and so is the website. Maybe we'll be seeing you on television.
Peninsula TV would like to thank and acknowledge the San Mateo Daily Journal as our media partner for the 2012 election special.
Hi, I'm Marshall Wilson, the Communications Director for San Mateo County. If you're looking for a place to find out what's going on in San Mateo County, as well as find any number of county and community resources, look no further than Peninsula Television and on the internet at www.penntv.tv. Peninsula Television is your source for information that impacts where you live and where you work.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. And now, back to Mark Simon.
Welcome back to Election Night 2012, live on Peninsula TV. And speaking of live, we got a couple of live wires here. We've got Don Horsley, former sheriff, now a member of the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, and his board colleague, Carol Groom. A couple of people who look pretty happy, and I think it's because Measure A passed tonight.
Very happy.
By a lot, 63% by our last measure.
Yeah.
Are you surprised that it got this much of a vote, Carol?
I am surprised. I thought it would win, but I thought it would be a lot closer. But I think the people of San Mateo County have really understood that we have worked very hard to keep this budget balanced. We made a lot of really difficult cuts, and now we're asking for a little help on the revenue side, and the voters believed, I think the voters believed that we had done our best.
Don, your thoughts?
Well, you know, I had a career in law enforcement, then I was in a healthcare district, and then on the Board of Supervisors. And so, I mean, I know the kind of needs that I see in a community. And so one of the things that we were able to do, I think, pretty effectively was to communicate with people that this is for seniors, for low-income children, for the disabled. And I think we did a great job of communicating that. And as a consequence, the voters responded to that. And, you know, I'm really gratified that we have such a really stunning victory.
Now, what happens next? How soon does the Board of Supervisors have to decide what they're going to do, what you're going to do with this money? I mean, you have to wait till the election's certified, I guess, but
True.
Is that going to be sometime in January when you'll really begin to talk about what the money, how much money is going to be generated and what it's going to go to?
I think that what we'll probably do is a series of study sessions, open workshops where the public can get their input also. But I think that the five of us will sit down and very carefully determine percentages and the highest need that's out there and figure out what, you know, certainly for me, healthcare is a very big priority. We're unable right now to serve as many people as we really need to, and especially in a timely fashion. So that's a real high priority for me.
Mm-hmm. And for me, we have a lot of infrastructure needs, and not only on the coast side, which is my district, which apparently I will represent more exclusively in the future, but we have in our parks, we have about $100 million in deferred maintenance in our parks. So as Carol says, and Carol, when she was the leader, actually demonstrated to some of these workshops where, in fact, the plastic bag ban that came out of Carol's office, we did do workshops, and we'll do the same kind of process again so that the public has lots of input.
Yeah, we want to know for sure. They passed this overwhelmingly, so we really want to know what they think are their priorities also.
The opponents made quite an issue of the fact that Seton Medical Center and the religious order that behind Seton was far and away the largest contributor. I guess people were suspicious that there was a deal kind of made, that you'd already decided you're going to spend the money on Seton. We had Marshall Wilson on earlier, the communications director, talking about the impact it would have on county health services if Seton went away, that they're serving perhaps more people who qualify for county health services than the county is, and suddenly this is a huge burden. But is that something you're going to do? I mean, they need to retrofit, they need to seismically retrofit that hospital.
No deals have been made.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real clear about that. We have no memos of understanding. We have no percentages of where the money goes or doesn't go. But it is true that they do more Medi-Cal, Medicaid, than any other hospital, including the county hospital. Mm-hmm. And should they not be able to seismically upgrade themselves, our North County health system would simply fall apart. Mm-hmm. So we have to take that into consideration.
And you know, I just add something on. I grew up in Daly City, and I grew up with that hospital. I remember when we did not have one, and you know, I grew up before when they had just a little tiny little clinic. That hospital is incredibly important. When I was a police officer in the city of Daly City, the first officer that in my career was killed in a line of duty, was shot, and he later died in that hospital. So I spent a lot of time in the emergency room, and you know, I know how important that is to the citizens up in the whole North End. And then over on the coast side, Seton Coast side has about 115 skilled nursing beds for people who, you know, really are really require not necessarily hospitalization, but they can't really go home, and they really, you know, they're close to their families, and so we do want to make sure that health care on the North End actually stays open. And so I think we were very open and apparent and transparent when we said that we really need to be able to make sure that all of our hospitals are seismically safe and our emergency rooms stay open. On the coast side, the only emergency room is Seton Coast side.
One of the things that came up during the campaign was the decision by the board to build a new jail. I don't know if people either misunderstood that you're talking about two different pots of money and two different responsibilities for the county, but I think it did say something about that sense that the county has money to spend. Why isn't it spending it in a different way? What's your reaction to that?
Well, you know, this is something, you know, I think Carol has said a lot of times that we didn't really want to be spending money on a jail. The fact of the matter is that, you know, when I was the sheriff in the 1990s, we talked about we needed to have another 500-bed jail. So it's something that's been a long time coming. Our women's facility is really, it's really old, it's dilapidated, needs to be replaced.
It's a pig pen.
And our jail's dramatically overcrowded. And then we have realignment. So, you know,
realignment is
realignment
the decision by the state to send more prisoners to the county jail so that they can meet their federal requirements.
Exactly.
Prison overcrowding.
Exactly.
I think realignment was a game changer.
Yeah.
I think Don and I were somewhat reticent about making the commitment to build a new jail. Both of us, I think, at one point thought that perhaps we should just build the women's jail. But when realignment came and we were told that we'd probably get maybe 30 new offenders a month, we're already way ahead of that. McGuire, which has a capacity of about McGuire, the current jail, has a capacity about 600. We're almost 1,000 there every day. You can't rehabilitate. You can't do treatment programs when you're in those overcrowded conditions. So I kind of thought at the end of the time, there was no choice but to do this.
Mm-hmm. If you guys can stick around, what I'd like to do, Bobby Decker's got some new results for us. I'd like to go to Bobby and hear the latest numbers, and then come back to our two members of the Board of Supervisors and ask a few more questions, if you guys can stick around for just a second. So, Bobby, why don't you tell us what you've got?
I'd be happy to, Mark. You will see, I thought it might be very interesting to compare the results that we're getting in San Mateo County on the propositions against what they're seeing at the state level. But you will see that 16%, 17% at the state level of the precincts that are reporting. On Proposition 30, which is temporary taxes to fund education, you see that they are almost split. It's 48%, 51%, 48 being yes, 51 being no. Here in San Mateo County, we have 60% yes and only 40% no. So you can see that we're much more interested in getting that funded and getting that education component funded. Proposition 31 on a state level, you've got the state budget. You've got 42% yes, 58% no. We're here, we've got 40% yes and 59% no. So we're in alignment with them there. On Proposition 32, which is the political contributions by payroll deduction, with 17% of the precincts. We've got 48% being yes. You've got 51% being no. Here is 38% yes and 61%. So San Mateo doesn't run with the crowd all the time. We're kind of little renegades over here. Proposition 33, the auto insurance, 47% yes, 50% or 52 rather say no. In here in the county, it's 41% to 59%. Then we move on to Proposition 34, which is the death penalty repeal. On the state level, 43% say yes, 56% say no. Here in the county, it's 55% yes and 44% no. So Proposition 35, just to keep it moving along, human trafficking, 83%, and we're at 84%. So we're running right along in line with that. With, let me see, Proposition 36, the three strikes modification. On the state level, you've got 68% to 31%, and on our level, it's 76%, 23%. So the county is even stronger on that one. Proposition 37, genetically engineered food labeling. Again, that's a very, very, very confusing proposition. You've got people not understanding. You can almost see that they're like, huh? And here in San Mateo County, 37%, you've got the same type of turnout. People just don't know what to do with that particular proposition. Proposition 38. Tax for education and early childhood. As you can see, only 25% are the yes. It's being resoundingly defeated on the state level. And here it's the same thing, over 73% saying no. Prop 39, hang in with me. I've only got a couple of more here. Business tax for energy funding. 59% is a yes on the state level with 41% no. Here in San Mateo, it's 67% yes with 33% no. And then Prop 40 is, that was a done deal, that redistricting. So there you have it, Mark. In some ways, we're just standalone little county here, and in other ways, I think it's taking them so long to count the votes on the state level that we may actually be in sync. So I kind of like being a renegade for a while.
Well, I like the idea that we're both fast and smart. And speaking of fast and smart, let's going to go to Katie Loretto to talk a little bit more social media mavenhood.
Well, some of the things that I've been looking on today is how to figure out if what you're reading on Facebook is actually true. It's a great way to post questions, to get answers, but there's a couple tips I can give you to see if what you're reading is actually accurate information. The first thing is always look for sources. Look to see if what they've been posting has cited some kind of reputable news source or anything that has come from there. Also, be wary of really, really cool looking photos. Last week there was a photo of some soldiers standing in the rain, and I think it was at the tomb of the unknown soldier. And the photos just from September. Something you can do if you're not quite sure if a photo is old or new, you can just take the photo, upload it to Google, and Google will say if there's been other matches recently. So you can see this one, for example, is all the way from back in September. So obviously it wasn't during Hurricane Sandy. The last thing is just don't fall for anyone trying to tell you things that aren't that you know downright it probably isn't true. There's been reports of people saying that elections are actually going to be on Wednesday when obviously it's going to be on a Tuesday. That's all I got for you right now. Remember, always try and come back to us on Facebook. We're on Penn TV, or on Twitter, PennTV26.
Thanks, Katie. It's always important to remember if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. We're happy to have Don Horsley and Carol Groom still here. We heard some interesting numbers from Bobby about how this county doesn't vote like other places. This county passed Prop 30 by a 20% margin. What is it about the voters here? They're stronger in opposition to the death penalty. They're stronger in support of food labeling. This has become a very liberal community. What has happened here? Why is this?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's, you know, it's. I hate to be parochial, but it's, you know, you can see we have higher education levels, and I think that we are much more supportive of education than other counties. I think we are very liberal, but I think at the same time there's a streak of conservatism in the county as well. So we don't really like a lot of changes, but I think in a lot of ways, you know, when there are liberal causes, I think that we're quick to sign on to that.
I think we think about things very carefully in this county, and so while we may be a little more moderate than other counties, but I do think we have people think they take their ballot, they take their voting very seriously, they take issues very seriously, and I think they don't have across the board decisions. Each proposition or each issue is thought about on its own.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the other ballot measure in San Mateo County that drew most of the attention, which was Measure B.
How about C, I thought?
Well, we'll get to C in a second.
Go ahead. But you know, I was going to say about C. C actually is a demonstration of their basic conservatism, because C was it's the county controller is essentially somebody who signs the check, and we were going to make that an appointed position, and it looks like it's failing. People like the idea of being able to vote for somebody. So that's pretty conservative. Years ago, when I was sheriff, I tried a number of times to have the coroner's office either appointive or part of the sheriff's office or the district attorney's office, because it seemed like it made a lot of sense, and it defeated twice. And so I've said I'll never do it again. So that is an example of their basic conservatism of not wanting, you know, being really careful about change, and, you know, really like the idea of there being checks and balances. On the other hand, the death penalty, support for education, I think they're much more liberal, much more thoughtful.
Yeah. I like the idea that it only took 2 elections to learn that lesson. Let's talk about Measure B. Let's talk about Measure B, which means that from now on, this county is no longer going to elect people countywide. Both of you ran under those conditions. It's understandable that you would have found them valuable because it was a system in which you succeeded. But what do you think is this going to mean to the county? The proponents were saying we're going to get a board of supervisors that's more diverse, that perhaps more accurately reflects the population of the county itself. What do you think is going to happen? What are some of the unintended consequences that might occur? Carol?
First, let me say that I'm disappointed in the voters' decision, although I certainly respect them. But I'm disappointed because I think that we've had good governance, and to me, this was about governance. It was about access. It was about governance. It was about having a county that's been well run, and I think has demonstrated it's well run by always having a surplus, being able to get things done. However, now in our city councils and on our school boards and on our boards and commissions in all of our 20 cities, there are a number of diverse men and women who have entered the political arena. They will be poised now to run for the next step. And one of the other things that was brought up a lot is it's easier to run when you which is true. You will not have to spend as much money. It will be just running in your 5 or 6, 4 cities or 3 cities or whatever the districts are made up. But, you know, I thought that campaigning wasn't supposed to necessarily be easy, and running for office wasn't necessarily supposed to be easy. And so I just preferred the at-large and thought that it made for better governance.
Well, one of the reasons that I supported putting on a ballot was because the particular district that I serve in, I spent a lot of time in that community, and I constantly would hear people say, gee, we really like to have district elections. Not that they didn't like me, but they would like the idea of having somebody solely represent them. And I kept telling them, look, you'd have one dedicated person, but the problem is that you'll have 4 that don't have any vested interest in your particular community. But nevertheless, I thought people have the right to decide how they're going to be governed. In terms of making it the idea of being cheaper, I doubt it. Just take a look at San Francisco, look at Santa Clara County. San Francisco, one of the supervisors' races, I understand, raised $800,000 in one candidate. So I don't think that it necessarily takes money out. I think it does make it smaller. It makes it, perhaps easier to run. I guess it's easier to be able to reach more people. I also think it has the potential of becoming more parochial. And I know that there are people who would say, and one of our colleagues would say, that most of what we do really involves the whole county. Well, it doesn't. Because in the sense that, for example, in my district, I could say, I have a clinic. I want to make sure that my clinic gets all the resources that it needs. I don't really care about your clinic necessarily. The same thing with transportation. We have a problem with transportation. I want to see all the buses in my district. So I think it could very easily lead to a lot more parochialism. I hope it does not. I don't think it will with the current Board of Supervisors, but it's possible in the future. On the other hand, I think people have a right to decide how they're going to be governed, and they've made that decision, and I'm perfectly fine with it.
Here we go.
So here we go.
So both of you have 2 more years to go on your respective terms, right?
Yes.
So you'll end up serving in this situation. So maybe a district office is something you have to set up now, too, something you have to look at.
First of all, both of us spend a lot of time in our district.
Yeah.
I'm there all the time. I can just put the mileage on my car. I meet with the community councils on a regular basis, so I'm perfectly comfortable with running district-wide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. I represent Belmont, part of Belmont, Foster City, and San Mateo. I'm in those 3 cities all the time, and will continue to be. But I also enjoyed very much. Don and I have been partnering on a couple of things on Alpine Road, trying to get some money to get Alpine Road fixed. I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed learning all the other cities of the county. I've really enjoyed being kind of a part of East Palo Alto, kind of a part of Daly City. So I'll miss that part, but that doesn't mean we still can't do it.
I'll give you an example of what Carol just mentioned about she and I working on Alpine Road. Neither one of us have that district.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, earlier in the show, Nick Calderon works for you, a real bright sort of up-and-comer political mind. Talked about how his concern was that what was going to happen is the large cities were going to dominate these districts. Redwood City in one district, Daly City in another, San Mateo in your district. It's a little harder to figure out which city in your district would dominate, but do you think that there's some validity to that?
Oh, certainly. In my district, there roughly is 150,000 people. The coast side, the unincorporated coast, has about 13,000 people. So 13,000 people are not going to dominate 150,000. So, the biggest city in my district is actually Pacifica. Mm-hmm. And I do have San Carlos. It really has kind of a smattering. I have part of Redwood City. I have all San Carlos. It's very eclectic district.
I think one of the things that went untalked about, I tried to talk about it a lot, but people, the newspapers didn't pick up on it too much, was that we're the city councils for unincorporated areas. So the unincorporated areas have had 5 votes. Now they'll have 1. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a kind of a hidden part of this that didn't come out a lot.
I'll call myself the mayor of the unincorporated community.
And by the way, for the record, one of the main proponents on the board of this measure was Dave Pine. We were going to have him on. He got sick, can't come on. Otherwise, we give him a chance to come on and talk about why he thought it was a winner. Don Horsley, Carol Groom, thanks for joining us here on Peninsula TV.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mark.
We now have John Mays, the editor of the San Mateo Daily Journal, on the phone. John, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
Good, thanks. I know you're putting your paper to bed. Lots of news to cover. What's your lead story for tomorrow?
Geez, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm thinking maybe the election. I'm thinking in particular which local election, which county election are you really paying the closest attention to? Is it Measure A?
Well, I think we're going to have to lead with the presidential election, but the main one, there's probably Jerry Hill winning the Senate seat, and whatever happens with District 4, the supervisor race.
I know in your editorial pages you were uncomfortable with Measure A. Your editorial position was a no vote. Are you surprised it passed, and are you surprised at the margin by which it passed?
Yeah, I was. I mean, considering that in June, San Mateo County voters voted no for 2 out of 3 measures that would tax visitors to this county rather than themselves, and then vote to say that they want to tax themselves for essentially the same services.
Yeah, it's sort of a perverse point of view. It is sort of a strange point of view. We're not going to tax strangers. We're going to tax ourselves. It's an interesting analysis.
It's very generous.
Yeah, well, the people here can be generous. Measure B, on the other hand, you also urged a yes vote. Are you pleased by that vote? Do you think that's going to dramatically change the makeup of something like the Board of Supervisors?
You know, it'll be interesting to see. I'm not really sure. I think there could be an opportunity to see some more competitive elections, and that's always a good thing. But we'll see how it goes. I don't think it'll change the governance of the county whatsoever. I think people will still govern the same way, regardless if they represent a district or the whole county, because I think everyone sort of has the county in mind. So we'll see.
You look at the totality of the ballot in San Mateo County, the different issues, different incumbents, most of whom seem to be getting reelected. Are there any other surprises, any upsets in there that caught your attention tonight, John?
Well, not really. For the races that we followed, I think it's interesting that Sabrina Brennan got the most votes for the Harbor Commission, considering that she was in third place in 2010. So I think, just the name recognition of having run once before, and then also just having a really strong grassroots campaign really helped her out. I think Jack Hickey for the Sequoia Healthcare District, I think people kind of saw what he was doing and said, no, I don't think so. In Half Moon Bay, the two incumbents winning, I think, is not really a surprise. So, I mean, for us, there hasn't been a lot of surprises. I mean, from across the country to the state overall, I think it's kind of been what people overall sort of expected.
John, listen, thanks. We know you're right on deadline. We don't want to keep you, but we sure appreciate your joining us tonight. We'll all be picking up the Daily Journal tomorrow. And by the way, thank you for your support for tonight's program. We'll see you soon, John.
Okay, you bet. Bye-bye.
Thanks. We're going to go now to Bobby, get some more results. Some more numbers have come flowing in. What do you got, Bobby?
Flowing in. Yes, Warren Slocum. He is actually at 57%, with Shelley being at her 42%, and that's with 31% of the precincts reporting. And then we go to our county, the District 7, Joe Ross is in at 59%, and Joanne is at 41%. Then we go to Brisbane, because we want to know what Brisbane is doing. And we've got the two top vote getters are Robert Dietmer and Don Cutler, and that's 35% and 32%. Then Cabrillo, the Unified School District members, Kate Livingston and John Ahern. Michael John Ahern are the top vote getters as we go forward. La Honda Pescadero Unified School District members, we have Robert McCann and Kathy Crane. Sorry about that. It's getting late in the evening. They are our top vote getters. Ravenswood City School District members governing board, Sharifa Wilson and Marco Chavez are the two that are ahead as we speak. And then Town of Atherton, you've got city council members Elizabeth Lewis and Carrie Weist. Then we've got Daly City members, the city council, Dave Capagna, and you've got Sal Torres. So as you can see, everybody is busy. We've got the city clerk. Annette is ahead by 61%. The city treasurer, I always love leaving on the city treasurer, because this is a man who can get the vote. No one running against him. He's got 100%. So, Mark, someday you'll get 100%.
Yeah, 100% of what, I guess, is the question. Thank you, Bobby. We are now joined by, should we say, Supervisor-elect Warren Slocum, who has won the 4th District supervisorial seat by a handsome margin, and will be the very last supervisor elected countywide in San Mateo County. Congratulations, Warren. Welcome back to the Peninsula TV studio. You used to haunt this place on a regular basis.
Nice to be here.
Tell me what you think, what your win is. What can you attribute your win to? What do you think happened? What do you think the voters are saying?
Well, you two are the analysts, so maybe I should leave it to you, but I'll give you my theory. First of all, I think name recognition was obviously important, okay? High name recognition. But I think the second thing in all of that was that the people recognized the job that I had done while in office for 24 years, bringing transparency to the elections process, fast and accurate election results, and some of the other innovations that we made while we were there. So I think those two things were kind of key for me throughout the campaign.
You got a question for him, Bob?
Obviously, one of the big things that was a question mark was Measure A. And now that it appears Measure A is passing by a comfortable margin, what difference do you think that's going to make in terms of the county operation? And how does that change the way you look at the job that you've got to?
Well, I think it's a short-term sort of bridge fix. It's not, you know, it runs for 10 years, so it's not the end-all magic bullet. And as I said when I was last here, when I was a candidate, I think we need to put into place some kind of methodology controls over that spending so that we're investing in programs and ideas that and technology that are going to return dividends and help us close that budget deficit over time. So yes, it does give us a little breathing room. I don't think there's a day to lose, but it's good news.
Yeah.
Measure B, what do you think about district elections having just run countywide? I believe you were supportive of Measure B. Do you think that this is a good decision? How would it have changed your campaign? Would it have been less expensive? And would you have won that district if it had been a different kind of campaign?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen, you know, the vote count's not done yet, so I can't talk about District 4 results yet. But, you know, now that it's behind me, I'm not so sure it would have been any cheaper, perhaps, as I look at it. And so, yes, I was supportive of the measure. I have been supportive of it for a long time. And we're, as you know, the last county in California to make that change. And there's good arguments on both sides. But the voters have spoken, and now we'll make that work. And hopefully, the lawsuit goes away.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, because we essentially solved the problem the lawsuit was threatening to try and attack. What are going to be your priorities? I know you've spent the whole campaign talking about it, but what are the 2 or 3 things you're going to try and do first?
Well, North Fair Oaks is in the 4th District. It has 15,000 people who live there. The county is the sort of city council, if you will, for those people. There's a community plan that was developed actually in November. And one of my priorities is to go to work on that plan, get county resources committed to move that plan off the bookshelves and into reality. That's going to take resources, time, and energy. And obviously, it's going to take communicating with people, restoring confidence, and being available out there in the 4th District in North Fair Oaks. That's one of my top priorities. Obviously, innovation and technology is something I'm very interested in. Frankly, would like to bring some new technologies to the county, to the board, to the county manager's office. The budget process and finance obviously is important to me. So those would be my top 3 priorities, probably.
Describe for a little bit for people who don't know what that plan is and what it would do to North Fair Oaks. It's a major redevelopment isn't the right word anymore because there are no redevelopment funds, but it would really transform that neighborhood, that community.
Yeah, the plan talks about everything from a healthy community to changing the way the community looks. There's a transportation hub that's called for that area. Housing developments, changes in zoning, and all of that, of course, there are going to be different opinions. Some people are going to want it this way, some people are going to want it that way. So it's going to take a lot of community building and dialoguing, and I'm planning to spend a lot of time in North Fair Oaks on that plan. But we're going to start with the simple things out of that plan first, establishing trust, communication, and then moving forward to some of the tougher issues.
You know, some of the colleagues of yours who've been elected to the board get to go to the board, and the first thing they have to do is start slashing the budget. It must be some sense of relief that even though it's a short-term fix, that's not going to be the first thing you have to do.
Yeah, I'm thankful that the voters approved Measure A, of course. But as I said, it's a short-term sort of thing, and there's not a day to lose. So, you know, I don't intend to leave any stone unturned when it comes to the budget and finance, even though this did pass.
You were out campaigning. You were out everywhere.
Yeah.
Had you heard that Measure A was probably going to pass? And did you think it was going to pass by this much? It's winning handily.
No, I didn't think it was going to pass by this margin at all. A lot of the places that we appeared and I appeared and people we talked to said, no, we're not voting for that. The county needs to get its house in order first. So I'm very surprised by the margins.
Warren Slocum, thanks for being with us.
Thank
Congratulations on your election. Good luck to you. Be good to us all if you can.
All right, we'll do.
And we're going to take a break. Stick with us. We're here until midnight. We'll be coming back in just a few minutes with more of everything you want to know about Election Night 2012 here on Peninsula TV.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. Follow and interact with us on Twitter at PenTV26, at Facebook.com/PenTV26. And don't forget to visit our website at PenTV.tv.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Adario, founder of the Bonnie J. Adario Lung Cancer Foundation in San Carlos, California. Our foundation partners with Penn TV to film and live stream our monthly living room program that is available to anyone in the world that has been impacted by or interested in lung cancer. We have found Penn TV to be a totally professional and highly competent organization in helping us produce and deliver our living room content. Penn TV is not only an invaluable resource to our local community, but certainly has been instrumental in helping the Adario Foundation get our message out to anyone involved with lung cancer. Please visit Penn TV on your local cable provider or on the web at www.penntv.tv to visit our living room program and to enjoy all the other informative programming that Penn TV provides. Thank you, Penn TV.
Hola, yo soy Pedro González, miembro del Consejo Municipal de la ciudad de South San Francisco, California. Soy el anfitrión del programa en español El Mundo Latino en Penn TV, canal independiente de televisión, fuente de información, noticias y programas de entretenimiento en el condado de San Mateo desde 1999. Estos recursos de información para la comunidad son invaluables y necesitan nuestro apoyo y soporte. Les pedimos formar la costumbre de ver los programas de Penn TV en el cable proveedor de su televisor. También tiene la opción de verlo en PenTV.tv. Si desea proveer ayuda financiera, vaya a PenTV.tv y oprima la tecla Donate, que quiere decir donación. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Tonight's Live Election Night Special is brought to you by
Today Sotheby's International Realty, bringing new technology to a 200-year-old tradition while serving the San Francisco Peninsula, Silicon Valley, and clientele worldwide.
San Mateo County Office of Elections. Peninsula TV would like to thank and acknowledge the San Mateo Daily Journal as our media partner for the 2012 Election Special. You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. And now, back to Mark Simon.
Welcome back to Election Night 2012, Peninsula TV's live election coverage. We're here till midnight. Stick around. We'll keep you as entertained as we possibly can. And speaking of entertaining, Katie Ruletto is here to give us more social media insights. Katie.
Always entertainment. I'm not just going to be tracking the Facebook posts around San Mateo County, but around the entire world. Right now, I'm looking at a lot of Instagram photos of parties of both kind, both the celebratory and the pity party, of course. This one is from Colorado. Looks like everyone's having a good old time over there, almost as good of a time as we're having here in the studio. right here is not sighted, but there are balloons here, and people are watching the election from all over the country and the world as well. But these ones are just of the country. People are really having a good time in Richmond, Virginia. I think they're just going to the streets, having a grand old time, as in Berkeley. Unfortunately, the Romney headquarters in Atlanta is a little bit sparse. So people are, documenting their entire night and how everything's going for them. And it's all on the web and all for us to share and have on Penn TV. So go ahead and Twitter, tweet your pictures, tweet your thoughts to Penn TV 26 or on our Facebook, which is at Peninsula Television.
Thanks, Katie, very much. Always a pleasure. We now are being joined by Roseanne Faust, the Chief Executive Officer for the San Mateo County Economic Development Association. We like to call it SAMCEDA.
It's a lot easier.
Thanks for being here. Let's start with Measure A. Is that good for business that we're raising our sales tax by a half cent? I know SAMCEDA took no position on it, which I think the proponents of Measure A thought was a win for them. But in any event, your sense of that, it's really an overwhelming vote in support of people raising their own taxes to help pay for county services.
Well, I think what it says, and it says for the business community, because in the time that I've been at SAMCEDA, I've never seen the board where they were very evenly split on this issue. They basically had a very healthy, engaging debate and the pros and the cons. And what this shows is that if we have sales tax that we control locally, people will support it. And I think those on the board that felt it would go towards transportation, towards necessary services, that was what they were talking about, where the other board members felt that the economy just wasn't there yet.
Mm-hmm. You've been following another issue that isn't in San Mateo County, but is critical to San Mateo County. That's Measure F on the San Francisco ballot, which would have at least set the city on the path of tearing down the Hetch Hetchy Dam, Hetch Hetchy being the major source of water. And the outrage for all of us, of course, is that it's more than 2/3 of the customers for Hetch Hetchy water are outside of San Francisco, and yet here was San Francisco making this decision. So you've got the latest returns. What do you know, and what do you think?
Well, I just came from San Francisco, so we were with all the folks that worked on this campaign, and we're proud to report No on F right now is at 78% to 22%. So No on F is overwhelmingly being defeated, the idea to take down the Hetch Hetchy. I mean, for us in this county, it would have been, we're paying for bonds to rebuild the system, to make it seismically safe.
And they've been tearing up big hunks of the county all over
Absolutely.
the place.
At the same time, we could have been paying for it to be taken down.
Yeah. You know, I guess the question is, it's easy to take offense at this. The fact that it was even on the ballot. Back when I was still a journalist and writing columns, I got quite a lot of mileage out of San Francisco's tendency to treat us like the colonies. I don't know if you're upset that they even put it on the ballot, or are you reassured by the margin by which it was defeated?
Actually, both. I'm reassured that it was defeated so overwhelmingly, because this issue has come up multiple times over the last X number of years. But what it's going to do, it's going to open the debate for us in San Mateo County to have a voice in the system going forward. Because many of us that were involved in No on F said, you have 4 counties, you have 30 cities, you have the majority of users, 2.4 million users of the Hetch Hetchy system, most that reside outside of San Francisco. So now is the time for that legislation to talk about how we can have a voice.
So a regional board, basically not let San Francisco have complete control over it?
Exactly.
You're talking about something that's, I don't know, over 100 years old in terms of the structure. Plus, it's a major source of revenue for San Francisco. I got to tell you, if I'm a San Franciscan, I could see 78% voting against that just as easily as they voted against this measure.
Well, I think we're going to have to work hard on it, and we're going to have to work with the folks in San Francisco, the folks at our state legislature, and the folks here in San Mateo County, because this is critical. This is 99% of our water supply in San Mateo County comes from the Hetch Hetchy, and we should have a say in it. It is one of the best water systems, gravity-fed, all of the electricity that it generates. I mean, it is a fantastic system, and we should have a say in how it's controlled.
One of the stories we've been sort of talking about throughout the evening is how San Mateo County votes compared to the rest of the state. And for example, Prop 30 is passing in this county. If it's going to pass, it's going to pass very narrowly statewide. There's a number of other issues. Prop 32 is losing statewide. It's losing by a substantially larger margin here, which you can interpret as a vote in support of union political activity. Is this county really that liberal? I mean, you're the voice of business. That's what SAMCETA is supposed to be for the county. Do you just happen to deal with the group of people who are somewhat more conservative, or is this basically just a liberal Democratic county, very solidly so?
That's a really tough question, and I wouldn't put it as a liberally Democratic county. I'd put it as a rational county. I mean, people want to get things done. And San Mateo County is known for getting things done. So when you start to talk about party lines, yes, voter registration shows it's Democratic, but you have people coming to the table wanting to work together. And from the business perspective, that's how you get things done. It can't be all one way or all the other way. And so I'd call it a rational county.
You represent a group of people who are more than likely going to be the people, the candidates for office ask for money. Now we're going to have district elections rather than county-wide. How do you think that might change the involvement of the constituency you represent?
I'm curious how it's going to change things, because I've always said, and I'm a proponent of at-large elections. And when I was on the county charter review committee, we did recommend that the supervisors put it on the ballot because we felt that the voters should decide. The issue is that you've got to have 3 votes. On a 5-member board, you have to have 3 votes. So you have to think about that. And the issues that you're going to have to address go over district lines. So people have to be willing to come to the table. And it can't be a winner take all or a loser lose all mentality. I mean, that's not going to work here. So it's a way of, I mean, the business community has supported people not for what party they're at, but for what they actually get done.
I've never thought of it this way, but district elections changes the way you think about things. Are there some districts that have more business, that have more of a business constituency than others? I mean, I think of the biotech community in South San Francisco. That's going to be a dominant element in that district. I'm not sure, because historically, businesses in this county are spread out.
Yes. I mean, you have it if you go, well, let's go up the 101 corridor.
Sure.
So from South San Francisco down, through Burlingame, through San Mateo, through Millbrae, through, you're coming into Foster City, Redwood City, Menlo Park. You have a variety of businesses. The venture capital, I mean, where is it located? Sand Hill Road. You've got the app manufacturers, you have high tech. I mean, look at where Oracle's located, Electronic Arts, you have DreamWorks going up, you have Visa, you have Gilead, you have EFI. I mean, it goes up that corridor. So if you're looking at it, the coast side doesn't have as much business when you think about it. So they have different issues on the coast, and those have to be addressed.
Okay. Roseanne Faust, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Mark.
I think we're all relieved that you were watchdogging Measure F for us up in San Francisco, and we'll see how the rest of this plays out. Yes. I believe we have a phone call now waiting for us, if I'm correct. Not quite. Well then, Bobby, have you got some results? Maybe we can call on you a little bit?
Of course you can, Mark. I'm always happy to help. Besides, some of these are very amusing to read. You just never know what's going to happen. That's part of life. Well, I just wanted to back up real quickly. I do have the City of Palo Alto City Council, and I was going to the East Palo Alto. Okay, so it is. What I wanted to point out to our viewers is look at how close that race is. That is an amazing 17%, 16%, 16%, 15%, 15%, and you've got 3 seats that can be taken. So you need to keep your eye on this one because that is definitely not over by a long shot. Then we're going to go to the city of Half Moon Bay. Cool. I've got it rocking and rolling now. Farmer John is still ahead. John Mueller, he's at 37%. You've got 26% and 22%. So that number 2 position, that could rock back and forth. Then you've got the city of Menlo Park City Council. Again, that's 2 positions. You've got 26, 24, 22. So you can see those top 3 people are really chasing after one another to get one of those 2 seats. Then we have the city of Pacifica, a full term. That was, again, you see you've got your 38%, your 35%, and 26 vote. So it looks like the top 2 are just chasing each other as to who's going to be first and second. Then we have Pacifica going on a short term. That's a 2-year term. This is with 42, almost 43% of the precincts reporting. You've got Mike O'Neill at his 33%. Then you've got the next 2 at 27 and 26. So again, this is an election year where people are just, they won't know until that last vote is counted. And then, let me see, the Harbor District. Again, everyone's so surprised. Sabrina, very well spoken, really aggressive after this position, and it's with 68% of the precincts voting, you see that she's up there at 24%. Then you've got your 20 and your 21 and your 19. So again, a clump right there at the 2, 3, 4 spot. The Sequoia Healthcare District, the Board of Directors, you've got Kim Griffin and you've got Kathleen, and they're neck and neck. So, like I said, Mark, this is an amazing year because there are a lot of talented people out there. They want to make change in government. They're sick of the status quo fighting in the this bickering back and forth, getting nothing done, and you see it. We're trying to get people in there that are going to make a difference. So I send it back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Bobby. We are joined now by Shelley Kessler, the head of the San Mateo County Central Labor... No, I'm sorry, Shelley Mazer. Got my Shelleys mixed up. I apologize, Shelley.
Yeah.
You're the one without the E.
I'm not the head of the Labor Council.
Shelley Mazer, who was a candidate for Board of Supervisors, running from a school district seat. Tough uphill battle for you, but I think you acquitted yourself well. I don't know if you feel good about not winning, but you ought to feel good about how it turned out. Tell us your thoughts about the election and what you think happened, other than somebody else got more votes than you.
Well, I mean, there's still a lot of votes to count, so we'll wait and see what happens when it's done.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to jump the gun on you there. I apologize for that.
Are you calling the race, Mark?
No. That would not be my place to do. Although I guess we kind of have done that tonight. But tell me how you think it's going then and what you're hoping will result in turning the race around.
Well, I mean, obviously the spread is not in our favor right now, but, the voters we're waiting to hear from are the voters that we've been reaching out to for the last month with our phone calls and our precinct walking. And so, we shall see. We shall see what happens once all the poll voters come in and see how it turns out.
You're running in the last campaign in San Mateo County that's county-wide for the Board of Supervisors.
I know.
You think it would have turned out substantially differently if it had been a district election only?
It's hard to say. It's certainly would have been a lot less expensive and a lot less time, but it's very hard to say. It just would have had very different character. Who knows what the primary would have looked like, and if we would have ended up in the same place in the general election.
If the numbers we're seeing hold, you will have run substantially ahead of where you were in June. That must feel good. And tell us what you were saying to voters you thought probably added to that number.
Well, I mean, obviously it's great to do better now than we did in June, and I think, a lot of the credit goes to all of the volunteers who worked on my campaign over the last several months. I have had a great ground campaign. I've had terrific support from the Democratic Party, from Labor, from my friends and community members who stepped up and spent a lot of time on the phones, a lot of time out walking precincts and, sharing our message and introducing me to voters. So I give all the credit to everybody who's worked so hard for the last few months.
Shelley Mazer, thanks so much. You ran a great campaign. I think my old friend Bob Marks is here. We often talk about a candidate who may not win the race but ends up winning anyway by laying a foundation for future campaigns. If this doesn't work out, my guess is, knowing you, you're not going away. You're going to be involved and you're going to be around for a while.
Well, I still got my school board seat if this doesn't work out, so I'll certainly be committed to working really hard for Robert City School District for the next few years, and, we'll see what happens.
Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll talk to you later on. Good luck to you, Shelley.
All right. Thanks so much, Mark.
All right. Bob, welcome back.
Thank you.
We haven't had you on for a while.
Yeah, I've missed you.
Shucks.
I have good news for you.
What's that?
Colorado and Washington have legalized marijuana.
Have they really?
Yeah.
We should. Many people think it's the largest cash crop in California.
I know
It'd solve the whole damn budget problem.
It really could.
Yeah.
Well, Prop 30 doesn't pass, then maybe that's what they'll look at.
I haven't looked at the Prop 30 numbers lately.
Yeah.
Have you been tracking the statewide stuff?
It is. It's getting a little bit closer. Before, I think I said that 31% had voted, but actually it's about 25% now. It was less. It seems to be moving a little bit, but the numbers are staying pretty steady. It's about point and a half behind, something like that.
Of course, everybody wants to know when LA County comes in, because
exactly.
that can change the whole outcome substantially.
Yeah.
I was looking over some of the local legislative races.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Hill, 68% of the vote. Looks like he's in very good shape. Yeah. Kevin Mullins, 70% of the vote, and Rich Gordon reelected with 68% of the vote, if I'm reading my handwriting correctly, which I may not be, maybe 63%. Surprise you that we're doing this well, especially in these races?
Not really.
I should say.
Not really. I mean, I think Kevin, ran a great campaign, and I think largely those campaigns were dealt with in the primary. And I think at this point, I'm not surprised that they're doing as well as they're doing.
We did have a different kind of primary in which whoever was the top two vote getters went into the general election. In this case, Jerry Hill took on Sally Lieber, both Democrats, but that didn't seem to impact 68% of the vote, almost 69%. That's an astonishing result.
Yeah.
The theory is that it would attract more moderate candidates, and I think there's no question that Sally Lieber is substantially more liberal than Jerry Hill is. Do you think this is an example where that proved out that the more moderate candidate had a better chance of winning, or was this an entirely different
Well, I think if you look at the amount of money that Jerry spent compared to her, that probably was a bigger factor. One thing that I am seeing across the state is a lot more competitive congressional races. And I think that's something that maybe as a result of the Citizens Redistricting Plan. One race, you'll appreciate this, Dan Lundgren is running up in the Sacramento area. Right now, he's with about 100,000 votes having been cast, he's losing by 70 votes. And so, there's still a lot to be counted there. So, but there are a lot of very close congressional races out there.
You've been in a close race. It must make you nuts because when it's that close, because all you can think about is the one more piece of mail you could have done, or the one more precinct you could have walked. I mean, I think if I'm going to lose, I think I'd rather lose by a landslide.
And I've said that many times. Yeah. I'd much rather lose by a big margin than lose by a very close margin.
Have you had a chance to sort of crunch the numbers a little bit on the presidential and take a look at anything new that leaps out to you about that race?
Well, Florida is still Florida is Florida. It's still razor-thin margin. Obama right now has 303 electoral votes. At least some of the channels are giving him that, which is, you'll find interesting. Harry Truman had 303 electoral votes. John Kennedy had 303 electoral votes. Two, I think, of the most significant elections in the last, maybe the last 7 75 years. And Obama right now is at 303 electoral votes.
You know, it raises an interesting question about the Electoral College. And we were talking before the show about this. It's something we've discussed and debated over time, which is everybody hates the Electoral College because it doesn't reflect the popular vote, you know, measure for measure. I would argue, though, in a fairly close popular vote, we're not waiting until January to find out who won, because we have a clear and decisive winner in the Electoral College. Is this one of those times where maybe the Electoral College does benefit us, or is it just antiquated and we got to get rid of it?
Well, I mean, I'm of the opinion that it is antiquated and that we do need to get rid of it. I think that I can see the value of the Electoral College, but, you know, to me, much of the country is just not involved. Now, you and I talked about this before.
Involved. I thought you said evolved, not involved.
Involved.
Yeah.
You make the point. You made the point earlier that, well, it would just be different states that would be involved, and you still have a small number of states that really, the big states, would be controlling everything, and that there's probably some truth in that. But I think, imagine this election if there was not an Electoral College and it was a popular vote. How much more people would have been energized in states like California, New York, other places. You know, it would have been very interesting to see how that played out.
Yeah, you were here when we were talking to Warren Slocum. You were here when I was talking to Shelley Mazer, not the other Shelley.
Yes.
Surprised at the outcome of that race? Warren mentioned specifically name ID. Do you think it was largely he'd been in office, he'd been well regarded?
Yeah. I think it was an example of two really good candidates. Shelley raised a lot of money. You know, and it's tough when you lose the primary by as much as she lost the primary by, to then go out and be able to raise a lot of money, which she did very successfully. Obviously, she had a lot of support, organizational support, a lot of key figures out there. But I think Warren's name identification and his ability to spend as much money as she did, I think really made it difficult for her. And I agree with you. I think if she chooses to run again, she's got a very bright future.
Don't go away. We've got Danny Gasparini on the phone, God knows where. Danny, where are you? What are you doing?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Everybody can hear you. Tell us what you're doing.
I've got, which is normal for me, voices in both ears. So I'm actually listening to you and Bob from both perspectives. Behind me, you can hear President Obama is still speaking and thanking his constituencies and building his vision for the future. As soon as that is off the board, we're going to grab Kevin Mullen and Jerry Hill to talk about the future and their vision for this state, and perhaps ask them to weigh in on spots 30 and 32 to the proposition races that we were watching very closely. But before I do that, I want to give a shout out how great it feels to be back at Kevin Mullen's side. If we all remember the days gone by where it used to be the Bob and Mark show in the pit, Kevin Mullen on results, and, well, me in the hospitality suite eating salami and picking a breadstick. So we've changed a bit and we've grown up a bit. We're trying to do this roving reporter and Skyping, and sometimes it's working. I hope all of you enjoyed the interview with Jackie Speier, Congresswoman Speier, and we're trying to make it work right now. It doesn't seem to be going in the right direction for a video feed.
I'll tell you what, Danny,
in the background have great amounts of people here that are, again, supporting both Kevin Mullen and Jerry Hill together. So,
all right, Danny, here's what we're going to do. Why don't you stand by? We'll keep you on hold, and we'll come back to you when these guys are ready to talk. Oh, I guess, I don't know if you've heard me, Danny, but we're going to, you stand by. We'll come back to you in a few minutes. Thanks for all the work you're doing, and we'll come back to you. Katie, We're going to go to you now and see what's going on in social media.
Well, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to my new friend. Her name's Janice Huff, and I think she put it most eloquently how tonight's going. She wrote to Penn TV, Mitt Romney has lost the election. I blame Obama. I don't think you could say it any better. If you want to read some really funny stuff, you can subscribe to her Facebook page. Also, don't forget us on Penn TV, Peninsula Television. Like us, please talk to us. We would love to have a conversation on air and get all that fun stuff on TV. I've been missing my memes, I think, my memes on my segments. So here's one that I just found. Let's see, where did I put it? Aha, here it is. Brace yourself, here comes the election tweets. Well, I've been bracing myself all night, so bring them on. I'm ready for them to go. But everyone has an opinion, and everyone's going to get those tweets out there. So make sure you get them out. Ours is Penn TV 26 on Twitter or Peninsula Television on Facebook.
Thanks, Katie. Good job. We're going to take a break. We're heading into a final hour of our live Election Night 2012 coverage here on Peninsula TV. Stick around. We'll be right back with all the local results.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. Follow and interact with us on Twitter at PennTV26, at Facebook.com/PennTV26. And don't forget to visit our website at PennTV.tv. Hey, did you know that Peninsula TV is available to over 230,000 households in San Mateo County?
And then there's the internet. We stream all of our programming on our website, penntv.tv.
Our website has everything you need to know about what's going on in San Mateo County.
From kids to healthcare, from sports to business, from politics to lifestyles.
Peninsula Television, your independent source for news, information, and entertainment since 1999. Tonight's Live Election Night Special is brought to you by
Today Sotheby's International Realty, bringing new technology to a 200-year-old tradition while serving the San Francisco Peninsula, Silicon Valley, and clientele worldwide.
San Mateo County Office of Elections.
Hey guys, Will Durst here for my good friends, well, acquaintances at Penn TV, the place for what's happening in San Mateo County, and lots more too. Visit Penn TV on your local cable TV provider or live on the web at www.penntv.tv. Hey, they do good stuff.
Hi, I'm Lisa Roundtree, Vice President of Human Resources with San Mateo Credit Union. I've been a longtime supporter of Peninsula Television as an individual and as a part of my organization. I'd like to invite you to support Penn TV too. Penn TV has been an important and independent community resource in San Mateo County since 1999 and continues to bring informative and entertaining programming to our community. To make a contribution to Penn TV, please visit their website at www.penntv.tv and click on the Donate tab. Penn TV is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization, so all donations are tax deductible. Thanks very much and enjoy your favorite Penn TV shows.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. And now, back to Mark Simon.
Welcome back to Election Night 2012 here on Peninsula TV. We got some results for you from Bobby Decker. Bobby, go.
Bobby, go. Okay, I will. With 26% of the precincts and areas reporting to the state, we are finding out that some of these propositions are so close because there are a number of very large liberal areas that have not reported a thing to the state. We're talking about San Francisco at 0%, Santa Cruz 0%, LA 3.7%. So we've got some big swings that could occur when you start looking at these propositions. So I'm just going to compare what we have. And oh, this went up just a minute ago, 2 minutes ago, just before we came back. It is now 49.5% to 50.5%. I mean, it flipped that much. We just couldn't change the graphic that fast. So that's how things are going to start. Again, we're under 25% of the precincts reporting, so we're going to have to wait to see what the results truly are at the end. So what looked like might have been a runaway, you know, you've got to listen to the people who know, and they're just right on the edge right now. So Proposition 30, how are we doing with that? Proposition 30 at the county, I can tell you what's happening. You've got the 40% yes, 59% no. Proposition 32, you have 37% yes and 63% no. So we've gone 30, so can we go to 32? There you go. So that is the political contribution payroll. So again, we're kind of running alongside of them. Proposition 33 for the county is 40%, 59%, so we're just a little bit of a difference there. Proposition 34. Can I have 34? Magic 34, death penalty repeal. Okay, 55% say no. On that one, 44% say yes. Here in our county, it's 55% yes and 44% no. Proposition 35. Human trafficking, 83% yes, and that's exactly what we have on the county level. Then we go to Proposition 36, 3 strikes law modification, and you've got 76% for the county, 68% for the state. Proposition 37. Genetically engineered food labeling, that's that confusing one where we just don't know what they're asking us and who's going to actually have to report it. 57% say no, 42% say yes. On the county level, it's 50% yes and 49% no. Then we have the state level for 38. Tax education and early childhood programs, 74% no. That's being defeated resoundly. It's also happening here at 71% in San Mateo County. Proposition 39, business tax for energy funding, 59% yes, 41% no. Here it's 67% yes in San Mateo County, 33% no. And we are done with our propositions. We're going to have an update, probably 10 minutes after 11, and then I'll come back and let you know what's going on statewide and countrywide. Thanks.
Thanks, Bobby. We're going to go now to Danny, who is standing by with a state senator-elect and assemblyman-elect. Jerry Hill is here, and Kevin Mullen. Just Kevin? Just Kevin, I'm sorry. Danny?
Pleasure of hearing the two of you, but I don't know how much you heard of my previous audio, but doesn't it feel great to have the four of us back chatting with each other?
Getting the band back together again. I love it.
Kevin Mullen on election results, me in the salami room in the hospitality suite, and well, the two of you in the pit. Those were days gone by, correct, gentlemen?
I hesitate to speculate on what you were doing in that room there, Danny. Kevin, congratulations. You won a resounding victory in a seat that your dad held, but it's also a big night for Democrats. Give us your sort of overall analysis of the election nationwide and statewide.
I'm going to translate what Mark Simon just said to you, and he said, first of all, congratulations in your victory in your father's previous district. It must feel great to have generations again carrying on the Mullen tradition. But it's been a great night in some regard for Democrats, and it hasn't in the nation in other regards. So what are some of your comments with regard to the Democratic races?
Well, I guess I'll reference the Democratic races that I've been paying attention to across the state. Certainly locally, Jerry with a huge victory. I'm thrilled to now be heading on to the Assembly. But I spent the past weekend on the bus with the Speaker of the Assembly, John Perez, driving around Northern California in some of the tight races. And it looks like the state Democrats, the state Senate, will go 2/3 tonight, get a 2/3 majority. I think the Assembly will probably come up a little bit short of that, but I've not had the opportunity, unfortunately, to look at all of those targeted races across the state. But a pretty good night, from all appearances, for legislative Democrats. I think the big thing, really, that we're all keying on is Proposition 30, the governor's revenue measure, which will really dictate much of my initial term of service and Senator Hill's initial term of service, because that will really dictate what we have to do with the trigger cuts if 30 fails, or we may be in a position where we actually have some money to work with, which at least eases some of the pressure that the current legislature is under with the structural budget deficit. So we are really waiting with bated breath, frankly, on these Proposition 30 numbers. I don't believe it's been called statewide. There's still numbers coming in from Los Angeles, so we'll be up late tonight, and that's very key for anybody who is going to be going to the legislature.
Right. And we concur. Bobby just gave us some election results, and while 30 and 32 locally we've been sort of following are too close to call, in our interview with Congresswoman Spear, we talked a little bit about the general public sort of feeling this, I don't know if we want to say distrust or dis-ease with our legislature. So we continue to see every election more and more propositions on the ballot. We continue to legislate by individuals versus Congress. But we seem to not want to trust that these propositions are what they say they are, and or that you as legislators are going to do what you say you're going to do. It was very clear to all of us that Proposition 30 was the governor's bill. And I think it was very clear that he set a mandate saying, if we do not impose this tax, these are the cuts. I don't think he could have been any clearer with regard to the cuts. And they're not easy cuts. They're down to the bone. So if this does fail, what message are we sending to our legislature and saying, we go ahead and cut, or we don't believe that you really were?
Well, that's a multi-layered question. Let me first say that the legislature itself needs to send a message that long-term policymaking can be done again, that you can work in a bipartisan way. The legislature needs a cultural change, which then sends a message to the public that, we don't need to go to the initiative. We don't need to do ballot box budgeting. We can trust the legislature again to do their job. I've heard from people who say, why are we deciding on this? Why can't we get a balanced budget through the legislature? Why can't we get a revenue measure? Well, the reason for that is it takes 2/3 of a vote to bring any new revenue into the budget. And the Republicans have held up any revenue measure in the legislature, so the governor's gone around the legislature to the people. The people will now have an opportunity to speak, and they're still speaking. We're trying to figure out what they're saying, even as we speak. But that will set a tone for when we begin session. I'll be sworn in the first week of December. And that will, again, set a tone for the kind of work that we're going to be doing in the initial phase. But your question points to something larger, which is, the public is never going to want to do away with the initiative process. My hope, I have to be optimistic at this point going into office, is that we can reinstitute effectiveness, real effectiveness in a bipartisan fashion in the legislature, which would restore some of the public trust in the body so we don't always go to the ballot for these different revenue measures and so forth. It's tough to get a revenue measure under the best of circumstances. let alone this scenario where we have a difficult economy. It's tough to get taxes in this kind of environment. So if 30 passes, it's going to be by a very, very slim margin.
You know, it's interesting. The voters of San Mateo County, throughout the county, it seems that school bond taxes, whether parcel or other, seem to be passing. So it's sort of that, hey there, it's sort of that feel that if you can touch it, feel it, hold it, we're okay with trusting you with increased taxes or increased legislation. But perhaps does the state feel too far away that we can't find this accountability?
Look, I think that's it. I mean, there needs to be a move to shift and devolve power from Sacramento to local communities, empower local school districts, empower cities, empower the county. Because with 38 million people in the state, you can make an argument that the state government, as currently configured, is maybe incapable of properly governing the way it's currently structured. I really think we need to devolve fiscal authority and autonomy back local, because that's where there's a sense of connection. Local voters, they know their school board member. They know their city council member. They know their county supervisor in many cases. We need to empower those folks and allow real decision making on the local level and have the state be a partner with local government, not viewed as the enemy of local government, taking redevelopment monies away and those kinds of things.
Well, and we know your cell phone number.
Okay.
Well, I have one last question for you. So I'd like to give you the last word. What will you focus on for the next couple of years in what you want to hope for in California?
Well, the cultural change, which we were just talking about, the devolution of fiscal authority, those are big, big issues that won't happen in year 1, 2, or 3. That's really a long-term proposition. In the short term, I want to be a district legislator. We have huge infrastructure needs in this county. We're electrifying Caltrain. I want to serve on the transportation committee, get on the budget committee to do work on resources and transportation, nuts and bolts kinds of things, and workforce development issues. It's a biotech, high-tech corridor. This is the epicenter of the innovation economy. This county needs to be heard in a big way in Sacramento because we are an economic engine for the state with this economy we have. So I'm going to be out there beating the drum for San Mateo County.
Something well said. So, Bob and Mark, doesn't it feel great to know local boy does good? I mean, he was one of us, and now look what he's done.
Well, he's going to have a heck of a time turning us down when we ask him to come on Penn TV.
I know. It kind of makes you wonder what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, we all wonder what you're doing, Danny.
Anyway, I want to thank the fans of the Mullen and Hill campaigns, and thank you again, Assemblymember Mullen. It sounds great to say. And we're going to try and find State Senator Hill as soon as we can, but otherwise, we're tossing it back to you guys.
Great. Thanks, Danny. I think we're going now to Katie with some more social media.
Here I am, still here, still reading some tweets. One of the really great topics on Twitter right now is President Obama's acceptance speech. People seem to be very moved by it, and they have a lot to say about it. We got this guy. To be honest, don't know who he is. Just found him on Twitter. His name is Reach Lieberman. And he quotes, "We are not red states or blue states. We are the United States of America." President Barack Obama, November 6, 2012. I am not able to hear the speech, so all I got is Twitter telling me how this speech is going, and it tells me it's going pretty well. Another tweet, let's see, it was pretty funny. It came from... it came from Brian is en fuego. It's pretty good username. Now that the election is over, Twitter returns to its prime directive, boring observations of shameless self-promotion, a.k.a. Kardashianization. Speaking of Kardashians, I got the last meme for today. Well, maybe not the last meme. The last meme for the time being. I've been waiting. This is one of my favorites. Kanye West. Of course, during the presidential debates, of course, that's Kanye West when he was interrupting Taylor Swift at the MTV Movie Awards, and now apparently he's interrupting during the debates. I can't help myself sometimes. Please follow us on Twitter, PennTV26, or on Facebook, Peninsula Television.
Thanks, Katie. Good job. I like the Kanye West taking the stage from Obama. That's pretty classic. We are joined now by the Chief Elections Officer for San Mateo County, Mark Church, former supervisor. Now this is your first presidential How did it feel to get one under your belt?
It felt very good. It went very well, and presidential general election is unlike any other kind of an election. So just the sheer magnitude of the effort. So it felt great.
How do you, I haven't heard the turnout numbers. How did we do in this county?
Well, we don't have the final turnout numbers. Right. The early turnout looks pretty good, but the turnout is not expected to be as high as it was in the presidential general election of 2008. And I think that's because of a couple of reasons. One is we have 29,000 fewer registered voters. Back then we had 390,000, and this election we have 261,000. And the other is that that election was a historic election, and you know, California is not really considered to be a swing state, so didn't generate the same level of interest. But we're projecting that when all the votes are counted, that it will be somewhere around 73%. We hope it'll be higher, but that's our best projection right now, and that is considerably less than back in 2008 when it was 79%, and back in 2004 it was 78%.
Yeah. Let me ask you, reading about all these different states having all kinds of problems with the balloting, some of them are trying to play a few games with the election process, but you'll have, like in Florida, early voting office opens and then it closes and then it opens again. You don't seem to have those problems here. What steps do you take to make the process run so smoothly?
Well, you know, we basically have a very good operation. I was very fortunate when I came to this office. The operation was in place, and there are a lot of moving parts to an election. There's probably no such thing as a perfect election, but we're as close as we can get to that. But it's the people. It's really the people that make things work, and we have a great staff, hardworking and dedicated staff, both the extra help, temporary workers, the poll workers, the field techs, and the permanent staff. Everybody comes together and they put on a successful election.
Yeah. Your dad held this office, you ran for this office.
Yeah.
I would imagine this kind of moment, this kind of election, is one of the most appealing things about the job. This idea that we have this vote that's a privilege. If you understand what it is, you treasure it, and you're in the center of making sure that people have a chance to exercise their franchise. It must be a nice feeling.
It really is. This is really ground zero for democracy. And to be a part of that effort, there's nothing more rewarding or satisfying than knowing that you have helped people vote. You've enabled them to exercise their right to vote, and so it's very satisfying.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things we want to do, Mark, is also thank you. Your office helped sponsor tonight's broadcast, and we really appreciate it. We think that we're sort of part of Ground Zero for Democracy, a chance to really engage the people of this county in the issues that matter to them. So thank you very much for your support.
You're welcome.
And thanks for running the election, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mark.
We're going to go now to Danny, I think, who's got State Senator-elect Jerry Hill standing by. Danny.
Thanks, Mark. Well, State Senator Jerry Hill is not allowing us to say that yet. He feels that there still is a large percentage of votes still need to be counted. So he's holding off on his victory speech right now. But we appreciate so very much, Jerry, to give us this moment to chat with you about some of the things that are happening not only at the state level, but some of the things that you experienced in this race, being the first of which we had an open primary and you actually ran against a fellow Democrat versus a Republican. So give us some comments about that.
Well, it's a whole different ball game when this happens, because a couple of reasons. One, it costs a lot of money. Normally,
when you have a Democrat and a Republican, the Democrat doesn't have to spend much money. And I had to raise and spend over $1 million in this race, which is a lot of money that could have been used to help other Democrats in Democrat and Republican races, or helped President Obama and other candidates. So it's a financial issue that creates a problem. But I think more importantly, what this does, when you have a Democrat and a Democrat, or a Republican and a Republican in some places, it tends to bring more of a balance to the election. And you'll see that the Democrats don't necessarily go to their bases, which is the far left in the Democratic thing, or the Republicans will go to the right on their cases, because you'll have a way to have to go to the middle. Because in this particular election, 22% of the voters in the district that I ran in are Republicans. So they had to vote somewhere. They were going to vote.
That could swing the election to either Sally's position or yours.
Absolutely. And that's what could happen. So that could bring a candidate that may be far on one side or polarized in one area to bring them to the middle a little bit more. And so we could elect more moderates to the legislature, which I think is important.
Right. Prior to us being live on the program, I was chatting with you, telling you that in my mailbox, I received a piece that said, Republicans vote for Jerry Hill, which I thought, one, was a brilliant piece, and two, you're exactly right. It is taking what used to be a bifurcated system, what you voted Republican if you're a Republican, you voted Democrat if you're a Democrat, saying, look, and as Republicans, we most model what Jerry Hill is talking about for our state.
I think so. And I think what they were looking for is to try and see that the position that I had, the efforts that I was trying to make, was to show that we needed to support our innovative economy. That was important. And the quality of life that we enjoy. We enjoy a wonderful quality of life with great educational opportunities, and that's important. But in order to provide that, you need to have an economy that will support it. So we need to have good jobs, high-paying jobs, and we need to protect our natural resources as well. So those three elements, I think, are important, and that's embraced by a lot of people that live in the Valley and in the Peninsula. So that's why I think the message that I had resonated with a lot of the voters, and that's why they were more supportive of that position and in this election.
Is there any one of the propositions you'd like to comment on that we're seeing some early results in, and some that have won by margin so far?
Sure. Well, no, absolutely. And the concern I have is Proposition 30. It's very close right now, and if it does not pass, we're going to see some very terrible, drastic cuts to education in California that we can't afford. We have to do better, and the governor has made it clear that, as we wanted to in the legislature in the past, change those cuts, those trigger cuts. If we score the dollars, the amount that we need to cut and make that, we can look elsewhere and find those cuts. He wants us to specifically be from those trigger cut and those areas, and that's really the problem, because if we do that, it's going to make some major cuts in education.
I'm going to ask you to comment on a piece of legislation that was, or initiative that was in San Francisco, but certainly could have affected all of us in San Mateo County without a voice and without a vote. And that was the Hetch Hetchy initiative. And that was to abolish the Hetch Hetchy and bring it back to its natural state.
What does that look like? I haven't seen it. I don't know what the results of are that, but we are watching that carefully, actually, that whatever the result is. And in fact, that will be one of my first pieces of legislation if it were to pass, and it may be even if it doesn't, and that's to allow for the 2 million users of the Hetch Hetchy water system outside of San Francisco to have a voice in what happens to that system, because we have to make sure that our quality and the quantity of water that we will get in the future meets the standards that we have today, and we can't trust it to San Francisco voters to make that decision, because if you remove the O'Shaughnessy Dam and allow the Tuolumne River to run into the other reservoirs in the area, and the water rights from those areas and those reservoirs are not the same as they are today, and we would not have the same ability to get the same quality of water that we have, and that's really what we have to watch for, and that's what we have to mind. So I may be looking at legislation to give us a voice in the future over that decision, because we're most of the water users, and we pay for most of that as well.
Right. Well, we hope that even if the Hetch Hetchy measure does in fact fail, we hope that you will actually fight for a voice of San Mateo County for the San Francisco Public Utility District and the Hetch Hetchy in our water as well. So we just have a last question in regard. aside from the budget discussion that may in fact happen first thing tomorrow morning, what is the focus for your candidacy and for your re-election?
Well, I mean, to me, the focus is, as I mentioned, I want to make sure that we sustain the innovative economy, but more importantly, in the state, we have to have a budget that works. We have to have a budget that provides Californians with the opportunities that we've had in the past, and we don't have that today. We don't have a reserve. We don't have a sustainable system of finance where the revenues are mainly based on corporate and personal income taxes. So cyclical that you can't plan. It doesn't allow for the opportunities of the legislature and the governor to plan for the future. We need to be able to do that so we can look at some of the long-term problems of California, water being one of them, transportation being another, and trying to improve our infrastructure and education. We have to get back to the master plan that we had in education back in the 60s when the first Governor Brown had established that. And we need to provide the higher education for everyone and create those opportunities. We don't have that today, and we need to get back to that.
Thank you, Senator-elect Hill. Bob and Mark, if there's anything we've proved tonight is the smartest people are from San Mateo County. If we could only have our California legislature all be from San Mateo County, we would be in a very different place today.
Well, there you go,
and
Danny.
I firmly believe that.
And I think we can use this as an opportunity to declare your candidacy for some office in the near future. Thanks a lot, Danny.
No, we can.
Please thank Jerry Hill for us as well. We appreciate his coming on the show. We're going to throw it over to Bobby in just a second, but I was impressed by Jerry's cautiousness about declaring victory. He's got a 50,000 vote lead in San Mateo County and a 6,000 vote lead in Santa Clara County. Santa Clara County is a smaller portion of the district, but I guess there's no reason not to wait if you think you're going to win by waiting. We are going to now get some more numbers from Bobby Decker. I think this is our final count for the evening, Bobby, so thank you. Good job tonight.
Well, it's been fun, and it's been very interesting to see how close some of these contests are. But I have the happy news of announcing some that are not that close, such as Jerry Hill's. We've got Dianne Feinstein, who is going to be our senator at 76% of the vote. 14th Congressional District for Jackie Spears. She was 77% of the vote. 18th Congressional District was Anna Eshoo, who was so gracious to talk with us tonight on just about how she feels about this administration and what's going to come. I always like talking to Anna. She always has a very positive spin to put on anything, and that's probably why we keep her there. Somebody's got to be positive in Washington. Okay, 11th Senate District was Mark Leno, another big victory, 80% of the vote going to him. Jerry Hill, who's being so very, very gracious and so very, very cautious, and he's at 73.6. 19th Assembly, we've got Phil Ting at 61. 22nd Assembly, we've got Kevin Mullen, and he's starting his career following in his dad's footsteps, and very articulate young man, and will be great for the county. 24th Assembly District, Rich Gordon, and he's at 68%. Then we go to the Board of Supervisors, and you just interviewed Warren Slocum. He was at 56%. Then you've got your County Board of Education member, the trustee area of Area 7, and that's Joe Ross. Right now, he's at 59%. I could go on, but I shall not do that to you. I do want to bring something up, though. La Honda Pescadero Unified School, and this was updated as of 11 p.m. tonight, so we haven't quite gotten over that 11:30 mark. But of the 5 people running, Mark, they are all within a point of each other. So 5 into 100 goes 20. They all 20%, 18%, and 4 at 20%, and 1 at 18. So there you go. I've got to tell you, it's been an interesting night, and thank you for having me here to go over the numbers.
Don't go away. We're not done with you yet. I just know that those La Honda Pescadero folks often have trouble making up their mind. Katie, we're going to go to a break, but I just found a photo here on Facebook of tonight's concession speech, and it's a shot of Romney with Big Bird. It says tonight's concession speech was brought to you by the letters F and U. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. This is Election 2012 on Peninsula TV.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. Follow and interact with us on Twitter at PenTV26, at Facebook.com/PenTV26. And don't forget to visit our website at PenTV.tv.
Psst. Hey, need some video work done? We can do that. We do all that video stuff. We can even put your video on that internet thingy. At Peninsula TV, we do full-blown in-studio production, talk shows, performances, speeches, anything. Remote multi-camera production, on location, at your event. And for the budget-minded, single camcorder production in high definition. We'll take your video project from first idea to finished product. For more info, contact Peninsula TV.
10, Mills Peninsula Health Services decided to create a health and wellness television program called HealthPoint TV. We chose Peninsula Television as our production partner. HealthPoint TV exceeded our expectations. The show even won a Best Public Affairs Programming Award from the San Francisco Peninsula Press Club. Penn TV is also online, where you can enjoy HealthPoint TV as well as other excellent community programming. We'd like to thank Penn TV for the high-quality work they have consistently produced for our organization.
Hey everyone, I'm Mitch Jurisich of Hooked on the Niners for my pals here at Penn TV. You know, Penn TV has been around for a while now, providing entertainment and news for our community, and these people are wonderful to work with. They're courteous, they're professional, and they've got all the state-of-the-art equipment. So if you have an idea for a television show that you'd like to do, or perhaps your company or a nonprofit, this is a great avenue for you. Take it from me. Contact the folks. The number's on the screen, and so is the website. Maybe we'll be seeing you on television.
Peninsula TV would like to thank and acknowledge the San Mateo Daily Journal as our media partner for the 2012 election special.
Hi, I'm Marshall Wilson, the Communications Director for San Mateo County. If you're looking for a place to find out what's going on in San Mateo County, as well as find any number of county and community resources, look no further than Peninsula Television and on the internet at www.penntv.tv. Peninsula Television is your source for information that impacts where you live and where you work.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. And now, back to Mark Simon.
Welcome back. We're on the home stretch here of Election Night 2012 here on Peninsula TV. Thanks for hanging in there with us. Bob, I thought we'd talk about a few more results, starting with Jerry Hill. I can't believe he won't declare victory. It's like, does he realize we're on the air? You know, he's got 75% of the vote in San Mateo County and 55% of the vote in Santa Clara County. And while it's closer there, he's still got a 10-point lead in Santa Clara County. I think maybe he's just being a little unduly cautious.
Maybe he's waiting for his opponent to call him.
Well, okay. Yeah, that's a phone call that sometimes is long in coming.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm not sure she has any great admiration for Jerry Hill, so she might not call him.
Yeah.
That was an interesting campaign because he did the classic Jerry Hill thing, which is campaign like an Energizer bunny. Raised money everywhere, campaigned. You know, he's sort of like God, wherever two or more are gathered, Jerry is there. Yes. And she self-funded her campaign, and I've never understood how that's a reform position, but I guess it can be. But I guess he's going to go to the state senate, whether he wants to admit it or not.
Yeah, no, I think he is going to win, and you know, Jerry has an amazing amount of energy, and I think who knows where he'll go beyond that.
Yeah, well, depends on what else opens up along the way.
Right. You never know.
Kevin Mullen, 70% of the vote in a heavily Democratic district, but still running ahead of registration. Very impressive campaign, very impressive win, and in some ways it's a new young voice announcing his presence on the stage.
I mean, you remember back when he won the South San Francisco race, and he ran for the first time and was the top vote getter. Yeah, Kevin is... you know, somebody that you and I know well. I've known him since, you know, he seemed like he was just a kid. But I think he's going to do very well. I think that he understands Sacramento, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't become a very powerful figure in Sacramento.
And then we got Rich Gordon, who got reelected with about 63% of the vote in a district that, with redistricting, got much tougher for a Democrat. He really sort of took the hit that Kevin Mullen didn't have to take because he got most of San Mateo County. Rich Gordon now has only a fairly small southern portion of it. But this is his last term. He's termed out. Sort of a quiet, effective leader, it seems to me, and going back for one more term.
Yeah. You know, he is. And one thing that impressed me a lot about Rich when he was on the Board of Supervisors, he's a very serious person. You know, he probably at that time knew the issues that the county faced better than anybody. He took the job very, very seriously. I'm sure he's done the same thing in Sacramento. And, you know, after we've seen, you know, whether it's Anna Eshoo, Jackie Spear, we've seen a lot of these people over the years really develop into some pretty significant leaders. You know, and the time that they've spent there, they really have evolved, and I think San Mateo County voters, Peninsula voters, I think are pretty happy with the job that they've done.
They pick quality people. You know, it's been our experience that people from this area emerge into leadership positions, whether it's committee chairmanships of key committees, whether it's important legislative leadership positions. Jerry was a caucus chair for the Democratic caucus in the Assembly. And I guess it's a tribute to the voters here that they pick people who are going to stand out. And it makes sense, I guess. We've heard from both Congresswoman Eshoo and Congresswoman Spear about the nature of the constituents here and the impression it leaves. Well, you know, when you represent Silicon Valley, when you represent Genentech and Oracle and Facebook and some of these other companies, Google, there's a certain gravitas that you get when you go somewhere in one of these legislative bodies.
Yeah, and at a time where a lot of places in the country, they don't respect government, they don't value government, we're seeing San Mateo County voters basically saying to government here, we want you to have the resources that we think are necessary for you to do the job. So I think it's a lot of what we're seeing tonight is really a vote of confidence in a lot of these people, a lot of these institutions that are here and the job that they're doing.
That's a great point, because it's at a time when it seems as though public anger at public institutions is at an all-time high or low, depending on your point of view. Along those lines, we haven't had a chance to talk much about the school bond measures, and they're all passing, and all passing by and large with healthy margins. Burlingame Elementary, 65.5%, Jefferson Elementary, 76%, Jefferson Union High School District, 73%. San Bruno Park is the lowest at 58.5%, and then the San Carlos Elementary School District, 66.7%. So again, we've got people who aren't afraid to pay for what they think they ought to get out of this. What's your spin on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you know, this county has a tradition of passing school bond measures and doing that. But across the board, I mean, voters are basically saying, you know, we want services, we want better schools, we want the county services that are there. And so, you know, I think it's good. I think it's still, as Warren Slocum talked about, even though Measure A is passed, it's a temporary fix. And the county is still going to need to do the job that they're doing in terms of really restructuring and really changing the way that they deliver services. Now they've been able to buy some time, I think, to do that in a more effective way, a more efficient way, and perhaps the services can still be provided to the people here in this county.
We're going to come back to some other thoughts to wrap up the evening, but I wanted to take a few moments and go back around the horn, as we say. Bobby, you've done a great job under difficult circumstances. Some of these numbers don't come in as we want them to. But your impressions as you've been going through the numbers, your sense of what people are thinking and what the election results mean to the people of this county.
Well, Thank you very much, Mark, and it's been wonderful listening to you and Bob chat about the process.
Well, that makes one.
I have to tell you, this whole process, the political process, is a fascinating thing to me. And tonight was particularly fun to figure out how I was going to get the stats up. When the state didn't want to give them to us, it was like extracting teeth. But even now, a couple of those large communities such as LA and San Francisco are still posting 0 as far as their results, and we know that that's not even possible. But anyway, to get on with it, thank you for having me here. I think the process is fabulous because it's so democratic, and we have fabulous leaders here. I am thrilled with the results. I am very, very happy that the bonds passed because we do really value education in this county. I come from New Hampshire. My dad said, get out and vote. It doesn't matter who you're voting for. Just get out there and vote because every vote counts. And it's neat to see that happening. We have a very energized, energetic community. They're very concerned about their children and not leaving them with debt. So thanks. I loved it. And thank God that guy, Mark, thank you, the other Mark, for bringing your iPad. You saved my life tonight.
Katie, your thoughts as you were scrolling the internet, looking at what people were thinking. What's your take on the election tonight and what people were saying in places that you were trolling?
Well, the most interesting thing about social media is that this Facebook button is really pushing for people to go out there and vote. Facebook is really pushing its users to get out there and have their voice heard. Researchers believe that because of this button, other people...
Okay, Katie, give us a break. Something's wrong with your mic. So we'll come back to you in a second. But you were talking about Facebook, and I know that all day they had a button on the page saying, if you voted, click here. And so they really were trying to draw people in. And it's interesting, we saw in 2008 the Obama campaign make incredible use of social media, of basically transforming a lot of what was going on in the body politic. And so it was interesting to see how they still capitalized on that. Everybody talks about their ground game, but in a lot of ways what it really was they're using technology and being ahead of the curve. I mean, we all noticed in 2008, if even out of curiosity you clicked on an Obama ad, you just got nothing but Obama ads and Obama messages the rest of the campaign.
You know, about a month ago, I decided to kind of connect to both campaigns, the Romney campaign and the Obama campaign.
By the way, excuse me, but you may have noticed Danny Gasparini made it back here. So thanks for being here. She waved at the wrong camera, but that's okay. It's been that kind of a night.
But I literally got, in the last 2 weeks, an average of 10 to 15 emails from the Obama campaign every day. Every day. The Romney campaign, I would maybe get one email every 3 days. The level and the sophistication of their operation, which in fairness they had 4 years to build up, and is just something beyond we've ever seen tonight. Yeah.
So Danny, welcome back.
Thanks.
You made it back. Thank you for
we've had a wild night.
Thank you for all of your on-the-road reporting. It was a real coup for us to be able to have Jackie Spear, Kevin Mullen, and Jerry Hill here. So thank you for doing that.
You're so welcome.
We're sort of summing up what impressions we had of the election. You're our resident Republican, so some of this is not news that you relish. But what's your sense, what's your feel for all of this?
Before I go to sort of what that sense is, I just want to say congratulations to Peninsula TV because, again, in the realm of social media and in the realm of being able to do something different for a local TV station and one that's now broadcasting over the internet and seeing nationally and internationally, should you choose to at some point in time, I think it's a great moment for local broadcasting so that people can actually hear our voice across the nation, and it's not just the San Mateo County residents or the cable residents. So I think it's great that, you know, in some instances it worked, and in others we were still trying to to jump in. But so, it was interesting being out in the community when you were kind of talking with folks in the room as we were waiting for our turn to go, so to speak, what their comments were about local races like Measure A and Measure B and C versus then what was happening at the state level with all of the propositions and nationally. So one of the things that we realized is it was all disconnected. We really couldn't find that common thread that said, well, we all just want to throw out anything that's going to increase taxes, or we all want to support anti-crime bills, or we all are for public safety and or unions. And so it was really just sort of this whole notion that you were sort of talking about with social media, and that is since we now have a readily available source of information, we're going and gathering it rather than just saying, well, I'm a Republican, I'm just going to check all the Republican boxes or all the things that Republicans tell me I should vote for. Rather, I'm actually going out and seeking additional information. And it's there for me whenever I want it, whether it's 10 o'clock at night or in the morning, and how much of it I choose to look at.
That's a great point. I really like what you're saying, because it is we spend our time looking for the trend in this election. And I suppose, given how closely divided we are, if that's an accurate way to put it.
I mean, that's the only common thread.
Then it should be no surprise that there isn't a clear consensus around any particular position. That's a great point. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to try and get Katie and Bobby back over here to the table to wrap up with everybody. Hopefully we can get Katie a microphone that works. So you stay with us. We'll be right back. We're going to wrap up our election coverage. You're watching Election 2012 on Peninsula TV.
You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. Follow and interact with us on Twitter at PenTV26, at Facebook.com/PenTV26. And don't forget to visit our website at PenTV.tv.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Adario, founder of the Bonnie J. Adario Lung Cancer Foundation in San Carlos, California. Our foundation partners with Penn TV to film and live stream our monthly living room program that is available to anyone in the world that has been impacted by or interested in lung cancer. We have found Penn TV to be a totally professional and highly competent organization in helping us produce and deliver our living room content. Penn TV is not only an invaluable resource to our local community, but certainly has been instrumental in helping the Adario Foundation get our message out to anyone involved with lung cancer. Please visit Penn TV on your local cable provider or on the web at www.penntv.tv to visit our living room program and to enjoy all the other informative programming that Penn TV provides. Thank you, Penn TV.
Hola, yo soy Pedro González, miembro del Consejo Municipal de la ciudad de South San Francisco, California. Soy el anfitrión del programa en español El Mundo Latino en Penn TV, canal independiente de televisión, fuente de información, noticias y programas de entretenimiento en el condado de San Mateo desde 1999. Estos recursos de información para la comunidad son invaluables y necesitan nuestro apoyo y soporte. Les pedimos formar la costumbre de ver los programas de Penn TV en el cable proveedor de su televisor. También tiene la opción de verlo en PennTV.tv. Si desea proveer ayuda financiera, vaya a PennTV.tv y oprima la tecla Donate, que quiere decir donación. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Tonight's Live Election Night Special is brought to you by
today's Sotheby's International Realty, bringing new technology to a 200-year-old tradition while serving the San Francisco Peninsula, Silicon Valley, and clientele worldwide.
San Mateo County Office of Elections. Peninsula TV would like to thank and acknowledge the San Mateo Daily Journal as our media partner for the 2012 Election Special. You're watching Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special, brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. And now, back to Mark Simon.
Well, here we go. We've got the entire team here now. This is Team Penn TV. Just to make sure everybody knows, we got Danny Gasparini over there in the red. Bob Marks wearing his appropriate blue state necktie. Bobby Decker here, finally get a chance to sit down for a change. And then Katie over here, still got her computer with her. Can't get too far away from that. I wanted to go around the table one more time and get your last thoughts about the election. The outcome. Katie, you spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people all over the place. And
I did.
Going back and forth. And we were talking just before we went to break about the impact of social media as a political tool and how adept the Obama campaign has proven in both two elections at really utilizing that to mobilize a whole block of voters. So what's your sense of this election? What's your sense of what people were saying and the outcomes?
Well, the really interesting thing is that in 2010, the midterm elections, that's when Facebook first introduced this button of I voted, and I get to tell everybody that I got to vote. It's kind of like the sticker, but you get to wear it on Facebook. And researchers believe that this is why so many more people went out to the polls this year, because they got to brag to their friends. And if they didn't get to say that on Facebook, then I guess you could always lie if you wanted to. But it's kind of like running in and stealing the sticker from the polls. But they really feel like that's what makes people want to go out there to the polls and vote, is because they see that other people that they know are really being active and trying to get out there.
Yeah. Bobby, your day job is in real estate. We just had a whole bunch of tax increases passed. Some of them were for schools, some of them were for county services. Does that make this county more valuable to people because these resources are being supported? Is that an important sort of business statement? We had Roseanne Faust on earlier, who's from Samsita. Mm-hmm. Business often traditionally opposes taxes because they don't want to pay them because they think it's bad for business. But you may be in a line of work where it's not bad for business.
That's a great question. That is a great question, Mark, and it absolutely helps us here. We are one of the counties. You know, I serve as the National Association representative here, director from San Mateo County, and I actually have to be pretty quiet at those meetings because everyone's suffering, and San Mateo is ripping and just doing so great. And one of the reasons, if not the #1 reason, is our educational system. People want to live here. You put something on the market, and 10 days later, if somebody's doing a marketing plan, it is gone with 15, 16, 17 offers. And that's not something I share at these national meetings. But I'll tell you, we are so fortunate to have people who can see that education and services drive the value in a community. Yeah.
Danny, what else were you hearing from people out and about? Were they, this is a pretty Democratic county, so they must have been pretty happy with the outcome, but you made a reference before to there's sort of an undercurrent of uneasiness. Okay, we'll give you one more chance, but you better come through this time. Was that something you picked up on?
Absolutely. So two things. One is, again, we talked about sort of this inability to sort of identify a common theme throughout local, state, and federal elections. The second is this whole theme about gridlock and or lack of cooperation or crossing the aisle. We've said this now for a couple of elections. I mean, it was pretty apparent 4 years ago as well, and it was pretty apparent 2 years ago. And we sort of still are saying, look, we're not satisfied with your level of cooperation, especially here in California, which isn't as bipolar, if you will, as some of the other states. So we're saying, why aren't you chatting? So you saw some young, new, fresh folks entering the Congress, Kevin Mullen and Jerry Hill still, that, you know, and Jackie even, who are saying, okay, we are really going to make a difference in trying to cross that aisle and building coalition and cooperation. So I think we're, on the conservative side, a little bit hesitant to say if that's actually going to happen. I hope the blame game stops happening. I really do hope that our young constituencies are going to force, and maybe through social media, will actually say, we demand this of you. It's not a rite of passage anymore. But I think there's still that sentiment of we're not really trusting the government that we can't touch yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Bob, your last thoughts?
Well, you know, I'm thinking about the president, and I think, you know, we know people genuinely like him. I think people universally, I think, are disappointed in that he wasn't able to do more than they thought. But I think people, you know, by all historical measures, he should have been defeated. You know, he broke a lot of records here tonight in terms of presidents with a bad economy being returned to office. And I think people want him to really step up and to try to reach the promise that he gave us in 2008. And on the other side, I don't think they wanted to reward the Republicans for what they saw generally was a fairly obstructionist behavior here over the last 4 years. And so I think it's a big onus that's placed on the president. I think the Republicans are going to have to change their behavior, or they run the risk of losing presidential races for a generation.
I agree.
And I'm hoping that, you know, maybe we'll be surprised. Maybe in the next year or two, we're going to see some of these problems that are so easy to solve, and we know what we need to do. Maybe we'll see people step up and actually get it done.
Yeah, I think the solutions are simple. I'm not sure they're easy.
They're not easy.
I mean, some of these financial decisions that have to be made are difficult decisions. They carry some pain with them. But I think you're right. I think a lot of people are ready for, all right, if it's going to be difficult, I'm ready for it to be difficult, but just do something.
Yes.
Right.
Katie, I wanted to talk one more time about social media a little bit and where you think this is heading. I mean, we see a level of involvement with people, especially young people who historically have been, you know, uninvolved in presidential politics or politics at all. Those of us who are on the older side of the age scale worry that it's part of the fragmentation of public mindset. That you know, when we were growing up, there were 3 networks, and everybody got their news from the same source, and they were pretty much the same kinds of sources. Now, everybody tailors their information gathering to their own interests, and you worry that they're not going out and finding out things that they may not want to hear, getting information that may confound their own level of thinking. So with that backdrop, where do you think a lot of this is heading?
I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, there's so far that this can go. I mean, I don't know if in 20 years we're going to be voting online. I hate to think that that's the way it's headed, but, you know, you never know. I mean, the opposite side of that, you know, back when there was only 3 networks and, you know, limited sources to get information from, now the sky's the limit. I mean, as Danny was saying, you know, you can go anywhere and get any kind of information you want. You can ask any kind of questions you want, and you can get access to a lot of people who have the answers for you. So at this point, it could be a very positive thing. I don't know if we're headed down where we're going to have technology overload and, you know, we're constantly tweeting and Facebooking every single little thing we do. I mean, one of the problems tonight is that people were Facebooking their ballots after they had voted, and you think that that's not going to be an issue because who wants to, you know, share their votes? It's supposed to be a very personal experience, but, you know, there really kind of seems to be not any limits on that.
Of course, the generation ago, we're talking about there were 2 kinds of bread, which are white and wheat. So a lot of things have changed, and it's not always for the bad. Also, I'm sorry, I got to stop because we're running out of time.
We were talking about
I want to take note of our friends here, Danny Gasparini,
Thanks.
Bob Marks, who came back from the desert to do this, Bobby Decker, and Katie Roletto. A lot of people made this possible, starting with Mark Naismith from Peninsula TV, Rick Zanardi waving to me over there at the camera, Garrett Thomas at the other camera, Rich Reisinger, Jim Reisinger back in the control room, along with the legend himself, Rocky Robinson, Jeff Dinn. A lot of people made this happen. It was a great... Yep, thank you. Mark Balser, I can't forget Mark, who was our results guru. A lot of the Buddy Saub, who was out running around with Danny. He had the leash. You can only hope to contain her. You can't stop her. This was a lot of fun for us. We hope you enjoyed it. It's exactly the kind of thing we think Penn TV ought to be doing. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for voting. We'll see you soon. Good night.
Tonight's live election night special is brought to you by today's Sotheby's International Realty, San Mateo County Office of Elections, and Peninsula Television. Peninsula TV would like to thank and acknowledge the San Mateo Daily Journal as our media partner for the 2012 election special. Thanks for joining our Peninsula Television's 2012 Live Election Night Special. Please watch Peninsula Television on your local cable network or streaming online at pentv.tv.